Don't tell me what to make. I don't care about your take. It's my channel, and I do what I want. Wah!
Wrong. Okay. We're live.
Are we live?
We're
live.
We're back, baby.
Oh my gosh, people probably caught me sipping my tea. We're back. We're so back.
So
oh my gosh,
back.
I think this might be, unfortunately, one of the longest gap periods I think we've had while doing a book. Hopefully, everyone forgives us for being away for close to a month. It was a busy time, and then I failed Matt because we got into last week. We were talking about doing it on Monday, and then I had an absolutely horrible sinus infection. Was down for like a full week, but now we're back.
I was sick too.
So
I
if
had a
anyone hears
family
me sniffle,
vacation. Yeah, it was. It just was everything lined up to. It just made sense to push it back a little bit. So it is what it is.
It's all good. But we're here now. We're finally recording. We're going to talk about another amazing book in scare quotes. But yeah, let's get into it. So welcome everybody to Hobby Vomit. As you all know, if you're joining us for part 2 of this whole series. But as always, I'm Ian, and this is
Matt. Hello.
Hello. And of course, if you've not seen this before, then we are currently in the middle of doing a book, House of Chains. So please go back and watch our first part of House of Chains before we spoil a whole bunch of stuff for you. But for everybody who kind of knows the whole shindig, thank you very much for watching the video. We typically have a lot of like veterans of Malazan come and join us, which is super awesome, and we love seeing your comments, so keeping them rolling. But yeah, we are going through, the book 2, right? Because all the Malazan books are broken up into books. And so we're going through book 2 of House of Chains. And we're going to be given, we're going through basically all the different characters. Matt and I were kind of talking about this before we started recording. But I think we're going to kind of focus on this one like group by group, because book 2 really kind of develops a lot of different plot lines. It was almost like a very direct story with book 1 and then like shotgun with book 2, which was really fun. But it means that trying to hold like one coherent plot doesn't really work as well. So we're going to talk about a lot of different groups and kind of get into what our hopes and predictions are, what our thoughts were on these sections, kind of what's going on. We're going to gab and just talk about whether, what we liked, what we didn't like, and just kind of get through it. And then here, hopefully, in a few more weeks, we'll do the next part. And then a few more weeks after that, we'll do the next part. And then, as always, at the end of all of it, we'll kind of talk about what our score was for the book, what we thought about it, and kind of what we're expecting for the future books in the series. So, yeah. Anything else we need to add before we jump into an overview of the previous part, Matt?
I think you nailed it.
Okay. You want to kick us off?
Yeah. So what happened in part 1 or book 1 of installment? I think installment. There we go. Installment 4, House of Chains.
Ooh.
Novel 4.
Season 1.
Yeah. Yeah. Come on, Steven Erickson. It doesn't make any sense. Why would you call a book within a book a book? It just makes it confusing. So in book 1 of book 4, House of Chains, we basically just followed Karsa's origin story. That was it. Karsa's origin story into becoming what we had known as Toblakai from Dead House Gates. And that was it. That was literally the whole part. Very focused. And then, so let's get into what our high-level overview of part 2 was. I wrote down the start of the war is imminent between the Malazan and the Whirlwind. Betrayal is stirring in the Whirlwind. The House of Chains is forming. The Hounds of Darkness have been released. And then mostly names. Lots and lots of names. And names for characters that already had names. So a lot of names.
Yeah.
And that's it. I mean, honestly, like if you like snapshot this part, not a whole lot like pushes the plot forward. But there was a lot. There was a lot in this part.
Yeah. I definitely agree. At the same time, it was still super fun reading this section because it still helped us connect the dots. Like, I guess that's maybe the best way to say it is it didn't push us forward as much, but it connected the dots really well for us. At least it felt like that for me. Yeah. Also, on the names thing.
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say, it felt like a good bridge it felt like it's going to be a bridge between part one, which was just like a narrative flow that basically had nothing to do with where we had been in books 2 and 3. And now we are kind of, it's like, oh yeah, this is what's going on. We're getting back into it. And then, it feels like book 3 and 4 will really be like, now we're going to take what you remember all these people. Yeah. Okay. We'll get you situated. Now we're going to go.
Yeah.
What are you talking about with names?
Okay.
What I remind you of?
Yeah, so I love how we kind of get this introduction to several new Malazan soldiers with their nicknames.
Mm-hmm.
And then there was, I think the quote was like, people kept asking like, do you want my old name or my new name? And he's like, God help me, give me your new name. I'm not going to remember your old name.
Yeah.
And I was like, Steven Erikson gets it.
Yeah.
Like that's why we're
He
getting
gets
like the
himself.
one title name.
Yeah. Yeah. Because normally, so when we take, or at least when I take notes, like I have a tab for characters and plots and world building and stuff. And I felt like every 2 seconds, I was like, all right, back to the characters page. I got to add another character, and like trying to figure out the, like, I feel like, so normally when I take notes, I feel like it's fairly concise to what I need for these discussions. And by the end of this part, I felt like I had just copy and pasted the dramatis persona from the front of the book. It's like I might as well have just had that in front of me because every character was name dropped here. It was a lot of names. And I would say like 85% of them were, names we had heard before and we know are actually important. So I won't lie, it was a lot to keep. I think this part was maybe the most challenging for me so far, as just like, it was tough for me to get through the density of it and like separate the enjoyment from like work. Like there was a part of it that did feel a little bit like work. Not that I didn't enjoy it, because it was fun to put all the pieces together. But what maybe we talk about more in the likes and dislikes. But it did give me a bit of whiplash, I would say, going from book 1 to book 2 here.
That actually was. They made me think of something where, so with the previous books, I've been also listening to them on Audible. So I'd like read at home and then listen to an Audible. I just kind of find where I was, usually by breaking up by chapters, of course. And so this one, no Audible, just all reading. Because I don't know. The Audible just didn't feel quite right with this one, with the new narrator and everything. It just didn't hit for me.
It's
but
me,
maybe
Carson
it's for somebody else.
Orlong. Hey.
Yes.
Like that?
I almost wonder if you would just do it for you would just have to do it for the experience if it was like that.
Yeah. Dude, there is,
but
not to go on a tangent real quick, but just to get you excited about First Law and Joe Abercrombie. He does have a big old character who sounds like this. Like, that's part of his character. He has a really high-pitched voice, and it is hilarious.
I do. There'll be a time I will be getting into Joe. At least I'll be very excited when we can talk more Joe together.
Yeah.
I feel now that especially more people are like talking about it too, that are like reading the same books as us. I'm like, oh man, I really got to read more Abercrombie. But there is still kind of a big difference in the way you and I read. Because you and I are both now kind of maintaining several books. I think you're still maintaining more than me, but you kind of alternate between them, like over time. Whereas what I do is I usually pick a couple of days of the week, and then I will blast through. So like in this particular case, because I wasn't feeling well last week, I started reading the new book on Sunday, and so I read almost 200 pages yesterday. And then I read the rest of it. I read about 160 pages yesterday, and I read the remaining 100 pages today. So I just blasted it out really fast. But I will say that, I would say with the naming, I didn't feel as bad keeping up with the names, but I wonder if there might be a part of it where it's just like I'm doing so much of it in one sitting that I don't have those like mental break, so to speak, in between, like almost like binging a show, right? Like I that's basically what I'm doing. Is I'm not watching the show week to week, I'm binging it basically in one sitting.
Yep.
And so a lot of it kind of flows a little bit more easily.
Yeah, that makes
and that's
sense.
just kind of what works for me with my schedule. Yeah, it'd be interesting. I'll have to think about that as it kind of moves forward. I don't know if there's necessarily a better way or a right way or a wrong way.
Yeah, I think whatever. Yeah,
That
whatever you find works best for
mm,
you, for sure.
yeah.
I
So
don't think I could binge this part and keep up. Like, even like, because the day that we always do, or the day that we do the
mhm,
recordings, I will always recap my notes because it
mhm.
have been a couple weeks since I'd read the beginning of the book. Um, and yeah, I'm like, oh yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah. I'm like, I really need the recap every time because
Yeah.
it's just a lot of, not even just the names, but like, even though not yeah, like we were saying, even though the plot doesn't progress a ton, there's so much setup here and all of it's
Mhm.
important, it feels like, to where it's just Malazan in general, everything's important. And so
Yep.
I'm constantly like, all right, I gotta retain that, where with at least with
Mhm.
Karsa, it felt like I was just reading a book. It was just like, oh, I'm flowing.
Yeah.
And very, very
Yep.
rarely did I have to stop and be like, this is this person and this is, their
Yeah.
allegiance and blah. It's just almost none of that. Where here, it's just like every time we're like, all right, well, now we're with Heberick, and Heberick was Malazan, and then he was with
Yeah.
Pelosin and the Totoro Islands, and now he's here, and this has happened, but his allegiance is here, and then it's like, now we're jumping to like Admiral Knock. And I'm like, all right,
Yep.
Admiral Knock. It's every
Mhm.
time I'm like, all right, I need to ground myself.
Yep. Yep.
So yeah, it's
I do
wild.
think in many ways the book one of this was maybe the most like well paced like single section, right, of like any of them, because it felt like, I don't know, it just felt like really sewn together quite well. I mean, we were staying with one character, so that certainly helps, but yeah, I mean, like you said, it was almost like you just read a novella, like, and
Yeah, it
there we go,
almost
we read
feels
a
like
novella.
that. Like it's very
Yeah.
interesting why he decided to put it at the front of this book.
Yeah.
I think you take it out, and almost nothing changes. It's like I just read
Yeah.
a novella in between for
Hmm.
a reveal at the end, which was awesome. I loved it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not to say I
Yeah.
didn't love it, but like
I mean, even
it's
if it
like,
was, we would be like, read it, right?
yeah, that's why part of me is like, I think
Yeah.
we figured out there are reasons why you couldn't read it first, but like if I was like, hey,
Mm.
I as far as onboarding goes, this has some of the least, to where you're
Hmm.
dealing with
Yeah.
one narrative, but I don't know. Yeah, well, we can
Yeah.
talk more about it in the pros and cons,
Mhm.
but it was
Well,
an interesting
one
change. Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. Well, one thing I want to mention is kind of part of the reason why I was bringing up book one was, I believe, you might remember better than I do, but I think we finally got a timeline for part one to part two, because I believe they explicitly said it's been 3 years.
Yep.
Or Urugal, because in the when we talk about Karsa, we'll get to that, but he is able to meet with Urugal once more, and I believe that Urugal says it's been 3 years. And so we
Since he
finally
left,
kind of
yeah.
get a little bit more of a time frame for kind of what events have occurred and in what order and when. So that was pretty cool. And then we also got news of what's happened with Jujek's army. So it does really feel like this section has also kind of set the whole timeline in order. So now it's
Yep.
a lot more clear like what's happening when, which I really appreciated.
Yeah.
So anyway, I want to mention that from part one to part two, it's been like 3 years basically.
Yep. Yeah. Well, not from like you just mean from like 3 years since Karsa left his village, right?
So yeah, exactly. Since like the kind of like the beginning in a sense of like part one
Yeah,
to
yeah.
like where we are now.
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah. So, if you've watched any part that wasn't part one of House of Chains, then you kind of will get the gist of what we're gonna do
Yeah.
next. Was just go through the plot, and yeah, like Ian was saying, it made more sense for me, instead of going chapter by chapter here, to really just group the plot points into different groups of characters and then go through their, from the start of this part to the end of this part. And there will be a lot of overlapping, and we'll mention when that happens. But here, I'll let you choose who you want to go with first, but here are the groups that we'll be going over, if if time allows. We'll see if we don't get too ahead of ourselves. So we got, and this is how I group them, so feel
Yep.
free to butt in. We've got Gamut and Tavor,
Mhm.
kind of just like the army.
Yep.
Fiddler, and everything happens with Fiddler. We've
And we
got
can group in like Essler and Stormy and them in that kind of group as
Exactly.
well.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yep. Basically, anyone that Fiddler interacted with, which does
Mhm.
contain a lot of them. We've got Lostara, Yil, Pearl, and I've got Cotillion here, but I've got Cotillion in a couple because he was kind of an
Yep.
outlier. He's just in a bunch of groups, but mostly Lostara, Yil, and Pearl. We've got Crocus or Cutter and Apsalar and Kalam. Cotillion's in this one as well. Oh, sorry. I think I ended up separating out Kalam and Cotillion. So really just Crocus
Yep.
and Apsalar, then Kalam and Cotillion. We've got Onrak and Tol Sengar. We've got
Mhm.
Heberic and Felis and Younger and the Shaik. We've
Mhm.
got Karsa and Leomin. And then finally, just we got a tiny little bit of Corballo Dom and Chemist Relo. So a lot of groups.
Mhm.
A lot of groups. So yeah, I will. I know you really want to start with Corballo Dom and Chemist Relo, but
Yeah.
maybe
Yeah.
we hold that.
You know, I'm all for their dastardly plan to start the new empire. You know,
Yep, it'll probably
so
work. It's
I'm
definitely gonna
excited
work.
for it. Yeah. No, I was actually I really liked what you had on the top because we kind of open up with it, and I think it is kind of the centerpiece, and so that would be Gamut and Tavor.
Yeah, I guess I also didn't mention these groups are in the order in which they first
Yep.
appeared. So
Yep. But it did for me really feel like that is the centerpiece of because in a way it's almost like the ball's in their court, right? In terms of like progressing the current plot line that we have going forward. And so, but I was I don't know about you, but I was very interested in basically kind of the challenges, let's say, that their forces had to overcome in order to even just muster. And it's kind of like a by your bootstrap, so to speak. Like, and so it was really neat to kind of see that. And I was surprised by how much of the chain of dogs, like I remember and like came back as we were kind of going through the different sections with Game of Tavor. So I think we start there.
yeah, that sounds great to me. So yeah, Gamut is arguably one of the newest main characters, seemingly. Really, one of the POVs we're following the most, and he was a guard of the Paran family. We find out
Mhm.
who has since been promoted into a fist by Tavor,
Yep.
by the adjunct. They've landed in Aaron or whatever. And yeah, really, this part is mostly about Tavor learning to lead, essentially, an army, in what is seeming to be one of the most important battles in Malazin's future, going forward. So really, we learn this. We also learn about the breakdown of an army here, and like lieutenants and colonels and generals and
Yep.
what do they call the legions and
Yeah, so
there's a lot.
you got your squads, and then your squads are going to be organized into. I don't know if they use the term platoons. I think they just are using the term companies, and then companies are organized into legions, and then and then we in this case have actually like multiple fists, quote unquote, where each like fist leads a different legion. Um, so yeah, it was yeah. So there's a lot of that. It's kind of something you can Erickson does come back to it several times, but he'll be things like, "Oh, I'm trying to find this squad," but if you just read a little bit further, then they just tell you exactly what they're doing.
Yeah.
So you can kind of just ignore it for the most part. But it is interesting how they're trying to actually organize things. I thought what was for me, kind of just in terms of like takeaways, I think what's more interesting is just kind of which factions are involved, and then you just move on. At
Yeah.
least that's kind of how I approached it.
Yeah. So yeah, we kind of start with us finding Squint, who was, as we remember, the man that had to take out Coltane, put him out of his misery, essentially. They find him super drunk in a bar.
Yeah, he's like looking real rough. I
Yeah.
mean, they like find him drunk, covered in vomit, like just reeking. And that actually like hit me. And I don't know about you, but as soon as they were like, "Oh, I found him," I even had this like moment of like, "Okay, there's a couple of people I think it could be," and then they mentioned his name. I immediately was like, that's the guy.
Yeah.
And like,
I know this
it's,
poor guy. I was like, let's let this man be in peace. I mean, I know it's not even.
yeah,
It's at this point, it's not even peace
yeah,
for him. But like,
yeah.
I didn't think we were gonna see Squint again. Honestly, after book
Mm,
2, I thought he was gone. Like, but nope, he's
yeah.
kind of getting, I think, brought back. We don't really know exactly why they're essentially like summon him, really, but they go find him, and it seems like they're gonna bring him back. And I mean, Tavor needs him. He's an incredible
Yeah.
archer, so
Yeah.
the army kind of needs
I mean,
him.
all we essentially know at this point is that they basically lock him up for his own good. Like they're but trying to like get him away from the drink, like give him some time, like get cleaned up,
Mhm.
keep an eye on him so he doesn't like do anything to himself. Yeah. So, but that hit me. I was like, oh,
I know, freaking
that
Squint.
was, and I really didn't expect him to get brought back up again. It was really neat that we kind of do get a little bit of a resolution in terms of like what happened to him, but I could just have easily seen it being left open.
Yeah. So they, that's between Gamut and Blistig, who is one of the other fists, and they regroup with Tavor. Basically, Tavor has called a meeting of all of her commanders. She calls them, in which she meets them and basically is like, "Here's what's going on. Here's what we're gonna do." And she immediately promotes, I think, Tene Boralta, and she promotes somebody else to a fist as well. She promotes a couple of people to fist. Sends Knock on his way to do something, and basically it's just like, I'm here now. We're getting the ball rolling.
Yep.
So she starts that. Then she meets privately with Gamut, the only fist that she brings with her, Lostara, Yil, and Pearl. And basically, as soon as they get into the room before Lostara and Pearl enter, she tells Gamut like, what happens in here that is beyond the Empress's ears.
Yep.
Which is already interesting. And so they then meet with Lostara, Yil, and Pearl, and basically she questions Pearl into revealing that, or she reveals to them that the Talons still exist, or Pearl reveals to her that they both know, obviously, because
No. Yeah, Tavor hired the Claw, or the Talon.
the Talon,
sorry.
yeah, she hired
And
Bodin
so,
to
yeah,
protect
and
Felison.
and this is actually, I don't think it's really actually said how Pearl suspects Talons, but it seemingly implied that he's been aware of this for some time, and that's actually like something he's supposed to be on the lookout for. And we would presume like it's true of all claws. And it is the case that his suspicion, at least, whether or not that was held by others, was that it was amongst the noble-born, like that the noble-born would have information. And so then now here he is with Tavor, who is a noble-born who serves as an adjunct and has seemingly sold out her sister, so has all the indications of somebody who might be willing to shed some light on what's going on with the Talons.
And we can kind of dive a little more into that as well when we get to Lestara, Yale, and Pearl. But basically, she tasks them to go off and find Felison, her sister. Obviously, Tavor does not know what we know about Felison. She just knows that she went to the Otataral mines, and the last time she heard from her was there was like the big rebellion, basically, at the mines. Hasn't heard from them since. Tasked them with going to find them. We do get a flashback of Gamut releasing Felison into Bodin's protection. Basically, the night that I think their Tavor and Felison's parents are taken, and him releasing Felison into Bodin's protection. So we do get a little flashback of that. He was the guard of the family, and then we go back and Tavor speaking with Nock about Pormqual's treasure boat. I think this actually happens before that meeting, but basically, treasure boat's been sunk in the Malazan Bay, and basically Tavor's like, sure, like sunk, and there's no signs of anybody, and basically we get to learn like the same thing happened with Kellanved and Dancer's boat the night that they were assassinated. It was also sunk in the bay, and there were no survivors. So. Yeah, a little questionable. She also questions Nock about the Napans, their loyalty towards Lacine. And we kind of learn about Kellanved's family. So I did write.
Mhm.
To me, I felt like this was important, so I wrote down the whole family thing. Do you want to take it, or do you want me to
Yeah,
take
yeah.
it?
And I one thing I wanted to mention too was, we saw Kalam in the last, like in, was it, no, it was, Chain of Dogs, where,
Devil's Gates.
yeah, yeah. So thank you, Dead Gates. And so we did see like a situation with him where the pirates had been hired to attack the vessel. So we have gotten some insight into kind of how this all happens, right? And so we know that there might be some definite misdealings in terms of like specifically targeting fleets within the empire around corrupt individuals like Pormqual, which I think that ship was for Pormqual, to in order to like have his treasure disappeared.
Yep.
And so we kind of know how that goes. Now I don't know if the ship they're talking about is the one that Kalam was on, but the point is we understand how that goes. So now this whole thing with Tavor talking with Nock is really interesting. I mean, first of all, he looks like a suspicious. I mean, he looks super sus. But he does kind of reveal that there is sort of there's like the forebearers, so to speak, of the whole movement that then led to the empire.
Family.
And
I
the
kept thinking
family,
about
right?
Fast and
So
the Furious. I
yeah,
couldn't help it.
yeah,
Family.
yeah. So Knock is like the Rock, right? And then like Dujak and all them, they're like oh my gosh, Vin
They're
Diesel,
all
and so
Vin
they just
Diesel.
can't see eye to eye. Yeah, yeah. They just can't see eye to eye or be on the same stage anymore. Um, so Knock kind of reveals this whole story, which is kind of interesting, where there was a pretty significant war that was out, and at the time Knock was actually quite young, and so there were a lot of individuals that were made refugees of this war. There were a lot of individuals whose families were impacted by this war, and so many of those refugees ended up kind of coming together. And then on top of that, there were some Nepan refugees that were also kind of brought into the fold, and together they sort of came up with a strategy for coming to power by taking one of these rival nations and conquering the criminal element of that nation, which essentially becomes like the origin of the Talons, and then effectively using that criminal organization to then conquer those cities and then ultimately that continent, and then they sort of formed the beginnings of the empire. And this is exactly what they've done. And we've seen this now in multiple books. Every single time they go to a new place, the first thing they do is they go after criminal element. We saw that especially with Gardens of the Moon. And that was like the way they were going to take down Darujistan, was like by going to the Assassins Guild and then hiring them to like kill all of like the hidden council members, and then they would like eliminate the Assassins Guild, or they would just bring them into the fold. So this is exactly like their game plan. And this is like Kellenved, this is Dancer, and then we found out something really interesting, which is that Lysine was actually of Nepan royalty. And interestingly enough, all the people who have disappeared, although quote disappeared, because some of them we don't think are dead, some of them we know are not dead, but Tavor, but Tavor and Nock don't know that, supposedly. And so they're all part of that Nepan group. Now, the other thing to remember too is that Lysine was of noble born and she's a refugee. Her family, there was essentially like a coup d'etat. Her family was betrayed and pushed out, and she's like the sole survivor of her family. And so the premise here is that the reason why these Napans are the ones that are specifically being knocked out is because ultimately Lysine just can't get over the fact that her family was betrayed. And so ultimately she's kind of taking it out on them, or she just can't trust them. So they have usefulness, but it was always like the plan that they would eventually be killed off, assassinated, put into too dangerous of situations, because ultimately Lysine cannot trust these other Napans because she doesn't know what loyalties they had during the coup. That's the supposed. Now it smells a lot. I don't really believe it, but that's kind of the premise that's fed to Tavor. And the interesting thing though is to find out that Lysine was actually obviously I think it was surly at that point, but to find out that that was actually she was of noble birth.
Yeah.
Um,
The other, I would say, notable part of that story is that we learn when Kellenved formed the family with Dancer, that they resided in the dead house, and they
Yep.
quote, which quote provided longevity, immunity to most diseases, and other things, which
Yep.
I don't know if that's the ascension. We don't really know. They don't say. But yeah, pretty important that that's where they resided. And then, yeah, I mean, Lysine, I think, surprised most of the people, everybody. That's what it may seem like when she betrayed Kellen Ved. And then I think Tavor asked why, because there's specifically 4 Napan that stayed, 4 that were left. And I think she asked why they stayed. And basically, Nock was like, well, basically, they stayed because they wouldn't be believed that they weren't working with her, I guess, if they left or something. So they just decided to stay anyways. But so there are I think so. Nock is definitely one of them. I can't remember who the other ones were.
Nock, I believe Dujek is one. Nock's wife who died, but like legitimately died. Like she died during one of their campaigns. Or I mean, like he's told us that she died, but like it wasn't like a presumed betrayal.
Sorry, I do have the 4. It's Nock,
Yep. Go ahead.
Tayshren,
Yep.
Dujek, and Whiskey Jack.
Yep.
Apparently, I guess I didn't realize Whiskey Jack was Napan, but
Yeah.
or
I don't
maybe
know if
he's
it's really
not.
brought
But
up that
maybe
much.
these are just the original part of the original family. These are the only 4 that are left. Is what I meant by my notes. I can't remember. There's a lot of weird details that are like, oh. So yeah, maybe that's what it is. These are the only 4 original followers left. So yeah, interesting for sure. A lot of lore dropped in a very, very quick conversation, which is quite on par for this entire section. But yeah, so basically we learn that. Then she tells us, we're obviously skipping over a bunch, just sticking with Gamut and Tavor. She meets with the commanders later on and tells them that they're going to march. Sorry, this is before... oh, yeah, I didn't do my notes super great.
I can... No, it's okay.
Yeah,
so I can kind of fill in the
jump
gaps
in.
there. So then we get the kind of leading up to these 2 events, we get the whole like organization of the army, as we kind of talked about before. And so the important thing is that the way that Tavor's kind of approaching it is that she's having them divided based on their previous faction, but then she's also interspersing different people, which is kind of a standard, right? Like you keep a core group together, and then the idea is to kind of spread it out so they're not just individual factions, but you kind of have different people in different groups as best as you can manage. Obviously, there are problems with that too.
Right, like
But that's kind of
the
the idea.
chain
So
of
you've got,
dogs
like-
amongst the 3.
Yep. Chain of dogs, but
legions
like
of-
also there's like Malazans are spread across. Some of the Red Blades aren't in the same group. And then in certain cases she makes exceptions. So like it was very notable that Blistic and Captain Keneb are both from Aaron originally, and they were going to be split up. But there's a lot of trust between them, and so then Tavor was like, "No, it's fine. You can put them together." Right? So, but the overarching theme here is really that she's very green. Gamut has never organized Legions of the Scale before because he didn't have much lead in terms of leadership before this. And yes, he was the captain of the House Guard, but it's a House Guard, right? So they don't really have as much experience with this. And that kind of shows in the fact that ultimately the Legions are going to present themselves as being extremely disorderly. And we get this amazing scene where they're supposed to show up. They're not well organized in terms of their ranks and like rank and file. Some people aren't dressed properly. They don't have some of their equipment, or they're not sitting at attention. They're like, in terms of the whole grouping in the legions, is very disorderly. So it's just like everything is just like a total mess. And they're supposed to be presenting themselves like in advance as part of their preparation. And Tavor and Gamut are just like, what the hell? It's so bad even that Tavor is like won't let her fist stand with her because she doesn't want the fist to be associated with like the embarrassment that is the presentation of this. Because if there's like any chance of like salvaging respect, it's going to come from them, right? Like she can't have them be like the embarrassment from the army. Mm-hmm. And then we get one of the craziest scenes ever, which I loved because it just, blew me away, pun intended. But we get a character that comes in like totally out of nowhere, and if I'm not mistaken, which please correct me, but isn't Cuddle like the leader of the sappers who like didn't want the promotion from
I think so.
Deadhouse Days? Because I think he's the one like where like he like demoted him. I can't remember if he demoted him.
What when
But
Coltrane does it?
yeah, Coltane, like wasn't like Coltane the one who like
Yeah, I can't remember if
you
it
know
was
he,
specifically
yeah, he
Cuddle or
like
not. But
demotes Cuddle and then he promotes like Cuddle second, and that's exactly what Cuddle
yeah,
wanted.
I was stoked about it.
And
Yeah.
yeah, because he just like he's actually like a really respectable leader, but he just doesn't really want to do all of the like pomp and circumstance.
Yep.
And we see this a lot with the Sappers, and that they're like, I don't know, I love the Sappers. They're like the most
They just
impressionable
want
people of the
yeah
whole group.
blow shit
Yeah,
up.
they was well, yeah, exactly. And so they basically have this thing that they do, and so it's shock and awe, where they are going to if the people are not taking the soldiers aren't taking it seriously, they don't understand the importance of the command and the organization and what they're doing. They just scare the ever living hell out of them. And so he, with like Fiddler's help, who is going by strings, they set up an explosion that's going to basically cause like half of the wall to collapse in front of the soldiers. And they're even like beforehand, they're like, you better back up. Because like
Yeah.
you better back up right now. And they set off, and it's meant to cause a lot of rubble, but it's just really freaking loud. And so it just like blows people on their asses. It like makes people like run for it, try and just figure out what's going on. And then they're like, okay, now get back in formation. And if you don't do it, I'm gonna start throwing these things at you all.
Yeah.
And this is kind of how they're like meant to like shock everybody kind of into this orderly fashion. And it's this like crazy, crazy scene. Of course, everybody does. They like get their stuff together. Like, oh my gosh, I think this guy's for real. And so they all kind of get in this whirly fashion. And so finally, we have a proper presentation of these forces. It's hilarious. And Tavor is just like, again, she's like so impressed. And so she goes to approach her fists and approach Cuddle and Fiddler, who she doesn't know is Fiddler, and is basically like, I guess you deserve a promotion, right?
So she tries to
this.
promote him again. Right?
Yeah. It's like the last thing Cuddle wants.
Yeah, he's like, no, no.
Yeah, and basically what he does is he just asks to work for Fiddler instead. Like he's like, just have me work for this guy.
Yeah.
That'll be thanks enough. And then as she's got her back turned, this little kid walks up and just like stands in front of the army, right? And just like just like a leader addressing the army, or like Paul Atreides from Dune, and just like holds out a long bone,
Yeah.
and just in front of the entire army, and then everybody just like is like they literally like holding their breath. They're like they just saw a ghost, right? Everybody just like waves through, and it completely undoes the morale that was being built up through
It
this
went from
exercise.
like no morale to great morale to
Yeah.
oh shit, there's an omen on our army now,
Yeah.
and we're dead. We're dead.
Yep.
Within a matter of like what 15 minutes or something like that. Like
Yeah.
if that.
And like everybody's like on the same page through like even Tavor is like,
Fuck.
oh crap.
Yeah.
Like everybody sees it and they recognize. But like at the same time, if you're like the leader of this army amidst like one of your territories has now been rebelled against, and you need to like kind of restore order, how do you go to your empress and you're like, no, we didn't actually march the soldiers? Why not? Well, because a kid waved a bone around, so we decided to just disband.
Yeah.
We're done. They win.
Yeah.
That's
I think
all
the
it takes,
omen
right?
is basically like the Tavor basically he is Tavor is a child that does zero experience, and you're gonna come in here and with a bone it's supposed to be like you're about to lead our army to death. Like this is exactly this is what it represents.
Yeah, it's like a bone from your leg, and it's like they're gonna march us to death. The child is gonna march us to death.
Yep.
And so the omen is very clear, but like you can't go to your empress and be like, no, we disband the army because of this, right?
They're like, trust
So
me,
there's
the
gotta be
moment
kind of a way-
you would have got it, Empress
You would-
Lucine.
yeah,
You would
you
have got
would've
it.
got it.
You would have understood.
And so it basically immediately, like right afterwards, the fists are like, no, like how like because Tavor's like, no, we're still gonna march. I'm like, how are we gonna march? Like you saw what we saw. Like we're all dead. And so she just says, hey, look, okay, 2 days. And this is where I think Gambit starts to show himself. he's the one who ultimately goes to the other fists. And I think this is like one of the great things too, because it's like both Gamma and Tavor, because you have to wonder too, like if Tavor did not separate them from when the legions had embarrassed themselves, like would they still have the same like level of camaraderie and like willingness to trust? Because that's what's kind of fascinating too, is like after that we see them come together in the moment of this omen of like they come together as fists, as a council, and then Gamma's just like, no, 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 she's just pleading for 2 days. Let's give her 2 days, and they're like, fine, we can do 2 days, right? And I thought that was really neat to like see how now all of a sudden they're coming together, and notably like Tavor, obviously very trust Gambit, but other than just appointing him to the position of fist, she doesn't do a whole lot to really like show favoritism towards him over the other fists, other than just the fact that they have a natural familiarity. But she's not like that. He's not in charge of the other fists. She doesn't belittle the other fists or things like that, or show him like undue praise or in front of them or things like that. She puts him in the same role as them, and you kind of see that natural camaraderie, and he's able to, plead, be her advocate for them. And so I thought that was really neat, and it really also showed too. Like right now, I like all the fists. I think it's like a fun little ragtag group, and ultimately, they have 2 days to figure this whole thing out. But it's not going to be them. And so we can talk more about that with Fiddler, but then in the background, Fiddler sees that, and he gets his own little ragtag group together, and he's like, so we gotta do
Yeah, we
something
gotta do
like right
something.
now.
Which is a great. I love the
Yep. Yep.
solution. Which I think, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, these are the two groups that's like I probably should have intertwined them with Fiddler and Gamma and Tavor. But yeah, I think we just go into what Fiddler does. He basically meets Gessler, who we know from Deadhouse Gates, one of those three soldiers that helped Fellison across that are not quite ascended, but something funky.
Yes, exactly. There's something that's happened to him, like maybe something even on the same scale as like what happened with Nock and the others through the Azath, but they have been bronzed, and we're learning more and more like they're extremely hardy, they're extremely durable, they heal very quickly, they're extremely strong, and it's kind of interesting because like we're not really sure to what extent they're aware of it. For them, like it just comes off as like they just see themselves as very like vigorous.
One of them like yeets Pearl across like a tavern.
Yep.
He's like, I'm sleep. Basically, it reminded me of like a Wolverine or something. Just like,
Yeah,
don't bug him. And he got bugged, and he just like Pearl's a claw. Just throws him
that's like
across
the kind of
but
that's kind of the fun thing with it all is like, they do these crazy things, but like they may not be fully aware, or they could easily dismiss it. Like Pearl's a claw. He's also a lot older. Like he is an older guy. And so it's just like at the same time, it's like, well, they might just be like, well, I'm like 30 years younger than this guy, right? I'm like, I'm a big dude. I'm 30 years younger. He's kind of a smaller dude. And like, and he woke me up. So, there you go. That's my wake up rage.
Yeah.
But then like, for
I haven't
example,
had my coffee yet.
yeah. So we know that like one of them in Deadhouse Gates, they had met with which those individuals come back, I think, but they met with the Talana Moss when they were in the nascent Warren, and the one who had sacrificed himself like gave his sword to Truth. Was it Stormy or Truth? Can't remember which one.
I can't remember which one.
The one they wake up.
I want to say it's Truth.
Yeah. But it's the one that wake up. And but here's the thing, right? I mean, swords are going to be heavy, sure. It's a two-handed sword, so it's going to be a little bit heavier, sure. But like they're soldiers. They handle weaponry all the time. And also they don't know anything about Talana Mas. So like they're not going to know how heavy a sword would be. Like for a Talana Mas. Like they might just assume that's a normal sword. So like a Talana Mas hands them a sword, and that might just be like, "Oh yeah, that's normal, right? This is what a sword normally feels like." And so they may not even think about the fact that like, oh, actually, no, this thing is like 10 times heavier than his sword would normally be.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so like we get that little drop of like, oh yeah, he's got a two-handed sword that like weighs like over 100 pounds.
Casual.
right? It's just like, yeah, just casual, just casually wields a sword like that. Which also, by the way, all the Talani Moss, like now we know, are just wielding like 100-pound great swords.
Yeah.
Like that's crazy.
Yeah. I thought it was great when Fiddler and Gessler meet. They see each other for the first
Yeah.
time, and they're like,
Yeah.
he knows that he's Fiddler, but
Yeah.
he doesn't say. But I think at the
Yeah.
end of the scene, one of them is like, "Bro, we gotta go talk. I got a story to tell you. You're not gonna believe it."
Yeah.
He's like, "Oh yeah, you think so? Yeah, well, my story's crazier." And it's just like, yeah, when you think what's happened to Fiddler and Gessler, yeah,
Yeah.
crazy. Like who even wins in that?
I
The
don't
one
know.
upathon. I don't know either. But yeah, so basically, Fiddler kind of gets the Legion or squad, I think, basically everybody to all unite to. He tells us the story of, I think it's specifically Nock, of how you should never fight an
Yes.
omen, but you got to embrace it.
Mm.
You just
Yeah.
have to, yeah. He says something like, "Yes, swallow it whole," or something like that. And
Yeah.
so then later on, we find out that they've done that by going to the cemetery and digging up all these finger bones and wearing them as like basically as an accessory, embracing the omen, which was awesome. I thought it was great. And Tavor immediately recognizes it and is like, "We need a standard made right now, like of."
Mhm.
Of someone leading someone into the army or into the sands of the desert with the finger bone. So yeah, I mean, it's just the craziest 180 after 180 after 180 after 180 of the morale of this army. But ultimately ends in the positive. They are going to, she does the random inspections. They go well.
Yep.
They've embraced the omen and they're about to march out.
Yep. I do love the like contrast that we get between Lieutenant Renal, which is he works under Gamut and he is the lieutenant for Fiddler, who's a sergeant again. And so it is interesting because the one thing we know now with Malazans is that they've been very intentional about getting very competent people demoted. And even Gessler like jokes about that a lot. Like there's like an almost like a competition between him and Whiskey Jack to see who would get demoted the most or the first. But the reason for that is because oftentimes people of lower rank tend to be on the front lines of things, having to make really important decisions. And so the idea was always to invert the ranks to try to get people who are very competent in those positions. And so like kind of one interesting tidbit now looking back is that Captain Perron was a captain. But he was also someone who was very loyal, but didn't necessarily have a lot of experience. And so now we kind of see how it makes sense that he would be the leader for Whiskey Jack, who has lots of experience, right? And when you look at like Tavor, who again is an adjunct but doesn't really have that much experience, but again, if you kind of go down the ranks now, I mean, granted, this is meant to be the exception. There's very few people, but there are starting to get some people who have a lot of experience who are at these lower ranks. But you consider Perron and then you put Tavor and Lieutenant Renal together. It's really interesting because Lieutenant Renal does not at all stand up to like the reputation we saw with Tavor or Perron. Like he is exactly what Malazans hate in officers. Like he's noble born, he's very entitled.
Yeah, he's a
And
jerk.
he's a total douche and he just
Yeah.
like dismisses people. And so I love how we kind of see that contrast where like we can kind of see a lot more about Tavor and Perron because they kind of are the exceptions in that sense. They were noble-borns who did not try to lean into it. They wanted to build other people up, and they wanted to find a way to be accepted by like through that process. And ultimately were able to accomplish things that achieved the respect of their fellow soldiers. Where Renal is like on a completely opposite path. And so I loved it when they brought the Gessler and then they brought up the don't start sharpening your knives just yet. Because that was what they told Perron in Guards of the Moon. He's like, well, you better watch your back. Why? Because they're likely to stab you.
Mm.
They're likely to stab you in the back. And so I thought that was kind of, I love that Erickson, how well Erickson does that with his characters. It's really cool.
A lot of callbacks, yeah. Yeah, just
Mhm, mhm.
the amount of depth. That was one thing I had to write down. Like, even still, like I would have to reference like my list of characters of like, all right, there's a fist, then underneath each fist are legions, and underneath each legions are companies, which the captains run the companies, and underneath the companies are squads, which the lieutenants run the squads, and within each squad there's also sergeants. I'm just like,
Yeah.
I just will never remember that. I'm just never going. I
Yep.
mean, fist, I can remember. You're at the top.
There you
That
go.
one I get. But yeah, it is like we are really getting into the weeds of how this army is built. And like you said, it doesn't really matter. I think at the end of the day, you don't really have to super follow what Legion, like Gessler and Fiddler are interacting, and they're in different squads, but like doesn't really matter. They're both under the Lieutenant Renault,
Mhm.
like you said. So yeah, it is one of those things that's like, it's cool. It's cool that it's there, and if you wanna dissect it, you can, and it's all legit. But yeah, I thought it was cool. So we also get news, or Tavor gets news that the Wiccans have arrived on the
Mhm.
shore. Basically, Coltane's clan of the Crow have arrived as volunteers.
Yep.
And speaking of Wiccans, the few remaining, the two mages, Nil and
Yep.
is it Nil and Nether or something like that?
Yep. Mill another.
Nil and Nether, and then there's Temel, who she's kind of promoted.
Mhm.
But they're kind of following her as like personal bodyguards, and they don't even want to work for her. They're like I think
Yep.
basically them witnessing Coltane's death. They're like, whatever spirits were in us are gone. She's like, well, you better find them
Yep.
because we're gonna basically you're the only mages we have, so you better find those spirits pretty quick.
Yep. And notably, Timmel was put in charge of the Crow clan.
Yes, thank you. Yep. So then they leave, and again, there's a lot of other stuff we'll get to, but they kind of go to this place called the Fall as they leave Arryn, which is now like a pilgrimage spot where Coltane fell. There's a bunch of honorifics and stuff from other tribes where they honor him, which was great. Again, it was cool seeing that spot that they kind of, especially like that's what you see first. They now realize they are going to walk opposite
Yep.
of what the Chain of Dogs did. They are going to do.
Yeah.
They're reverse tracking it, which is pretty wild.
Mhm.
So also right before they leave, we get Topper. Topper is back. As soon as he says something about like a green outfit, I was like, oh, it's the guy that Perron met, like, and escorted him via the Warren from Gardens of the Moon. We
Yeah.
just haven't seen him since. So he's the
Yeah.
Clawmaster.
Well,
Have we seen him since?
well, no, we have seen him since.
Okay.
But it's always like background. So I believe, right? Topper, didn't Topper appear when Kalam went after Lassine?
Did he? I think he talks to him. I think yeah, I guess so. I think Callum like he like talks to him through the dead claw. He's like, I know you can hear me.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
I guess
Yeah.
that is Topper.
Yep.
But so he basically appears to a meeting between, I think it's Gamut and Tavor. They're in like a little tent, and notably Tavor has like an Otatarol sword, pretty important. That's like going to be an important weapon against the whirlwind, which is magic. At least we are to assume that's going to be kind of like the weapon. So she has to put it in like a stone, I don't know, box, if you will, just so that Topper can use a warren to get in there. And he's just basically like, all right, let me catch you up on everything that's happened. And he does. He tells everything that's happened in Memories of Ice. He recounts to them. To which someone from Fiddler's group, Bottles, is listening, runs back, tells Fiddler, and unfortunately, this is when Fiddler finds out that Whiskey Jack is dead, which is sad. But very close friends, and he goes off to mourn. We'll talk about that later, but he also tells Tavor that Perron, her brother, and all the bridge burners are dead. Because I think we're to assume that's what he truly believes, even though we know
Yep.
the surviving ones have gone.
Because that's what Drujek reported.
Yes. Yep. So Topper isn't also like in on that. He just thinks that all the bridge burners are dead. Um, and then he also kind of informs Tavor like the original plan was that Dujek was gonna take the army and go to the north, and then he's gonna basically take over the role of leading this army. But now that like his force is brought down from like 10,000 to 3,000 or something like that, you got to do it. You got to do it now. So he also lets us know that Dujek is still coming. He's just not going to lead like he was going to.
He's gonna be late.
He's going to be late. Yep. And with a lot less people than they thought. Yep. And that's pretty much it. He has to peace out because Tavor's like, unless you plan on staying overnight, my sword's going to close your warren super soon, even in that box. So you got to go if you're going to go. And then he does. He leaves. And that's kind of like where we leave the Malazan army is like they are now marching off to fight against the Sheikh in the Whirlwind. So really, this book was just like rallying the troops, the end.
Yep.
But there's so much more to it than that, to where it's just like, I think this is the perfect example of like it's just even hard to like summarize because you can't summarize it when literally everything has importance and meaning. But yeah, so I think that's Gamut and Tavor in the Malazan army. Is there anything other with Fiddler that you want to talk about before we kind of move off
I think
of that?
Yeah, I mean, the main thing is like we are seeing that he's going by a different name, and I think a lot of that's just because he is a bridge burner who is officially outlawed, so it's just easier to go by a different name. He also doesn't want to attract a lot of attention to himself because those who would know him would likely give him a lot more attention, and he would be, for those who don't know him, he'd be kind of like a myth, right, like a legend, so to speak. Now there is like one other really important thing that we don't see in Fiddler's storyline, but we have heard in another storyline, which is that there is an omen or more of like a prophecy or a sign that we know that the bridge burners they formed as bridge burners in the deserts of Raraku, and when in the events of Deadhouse Gates, they needed to be able to get into the Azath, they used a song that was given to them, which was extremely powerful. But this is like enacted or put into motion this like story that's being told. And since it began and since the story is about the bridge burner, since it began in Raraku, it must end in Raraku. And there's this idea that it can't. So this like magic, this power will be lost because there's no bridge burners left to return to the desert, but notably Fiddler is returning to the desert. So there is still a bridge burner left to return. So that's going to be, I'm very excited to see where that goes. But in terms of Fiddler, there's not really much else other than just to say that he's just doing what he can as a veteran to try to really give these newbies the best chance they have at survival. And when he hears about Whiskey Jack's death and like goes off, that really hurt. And then he meets Timmel, who's like also in sorrow. And like that was also really hard too, because he's like, oh, like why are you so sad? And he's like, well, I lost Duker and I lost Coltane. And he's like, oh yeah, that's really like, it's really, I can't believe like you lost Duker. He's like, yeah, but it's okay because he got the Soul Trapper stone, so they'll just resurrect him. He's like, oh, okay. Well, and like Coltane, I'm so sorry about him. Like, oh, it's okay. The crows actually got him. We heard news that he's been born again.
Yeah.
He's like, oh, so both of your loved, like both the guys you really respected and looked up to who died got resurrected. He's like, yeah. He's like, like,
yeah.
Why could I have that? Like,
Yeah.
come on. Like, where's Whiskey Jack's rebirth? It's just, oh, like he comes to comfort this guy, and it's just like, what the hell, man? And it's just like, oh.
And notably, Temel is riding. He's leading the SETI, right?
Yep. He's in the SETI. He's leading the Crow members of the Crow clan. He's
riding Coltane's. Coltane's horse, like keeping.
Duker's horse. It's Duker's horse, which I think may have come from Coltane originally, but it's Duker's horse. Yeah, because he's like in terms of Coltane, like Coltane's like a child now who's a baby, right? Who's with the clan, but like he wants to hold Duker's horse when Duker comes back because Duker will, you know, I don't even know that Coltane's horse would still be alive, but Duker's was because Duker left it with Aaron
Mm.
when he went out with Pormqual.
Oh yeah,
So,
yeah, yeah.
yep. So he's got Duker's force for the time when he comes back, which is really cool. But yeah, but he's leading the city. They don't respect him. The Crow clan doesn't really respect him either. So he's being put in charge of people that don't really recognize his leadership.
Yep. And no other notes with Fiddler is that he does find out Quick Ben is still alive. So at least one of his
Yep.
friends has made it,
Yep.
which is
Yep.
good. Fiddler is such an interesting character. It's like, bruh, why would you go? I mean, like, I love him for it, but man, dude, going back to this after everything he went through in Deadhouse Gate,
Yep.
he's like, I guess I'll go back and go into
Yep.
this giant fight.
Yep.
It just is like so much has happened. It's like feels like a different character, even though it's not. I think that's just the breadth of characters. I'm like, oh yeah, he
Yep.
went through all this shit. Like that's, and now he's deciding to go
Yep.
back. Because that's what he
Yeah.
says at the end of Deadhouse. They're like, what are you gonna do? He's like, I'm going back. I'm like, all
Yeah.
right, dude. And here he is.
But it's also like kind of what we see from sappers as a whole. Is
Oh,
they're
yeah.
just kind of
Super on
ragtag. They don't
brand.
always follow the rules, but there's something about them where for them like they're there to give it all for their fellow members in the troop. Like
Yeah.
that is like their main goal is just to try to keep as many Malazans alive in the army as possible.
Yeah.
By any means possible. And so, yeah, it's very neat. And when you see him in a different mode, like that is kind of interesting. Like he is in a very different mode than he was in Deadhouse Gates, and you feel it too. Like it feels like Fiddler from Guardians of the Moon again, like in the army, doing the work. And so it's really cool to see him in his element.
Yeah.
Now, speaking of Quick Ben, I know the next one you have in the group is Lustariel and Pearl, which we get a really interesting couple of pages going through Lustariel's background,
I loved it.
and which has opened up. I know it was super good.
Yeah,
and
I
it's
was not
opened up
expecting
a
to
lot.
get like Lestar Yo
Yep.
development
Yeah,
or ever see her again. I mean, really.
yeah. And so Lustariel is like this really interesting character for me now, and I'm so glad that we got this little piece of it because now we kind of know a little bit more about her background, where she comes from a city that was conquered by the Malazans. And I will say that this very much also kind of gets into part of the theme of what we're seeing with the Empire, and it's that theme is really important for what we see with like Corbeil Dom because there's two contrasting ideas there, where the Empire is trying to bring out justice through force, so they're about like they want to conquer different lands and conquer different cities, not to eradicate their culture or enslave their people, but to institute a sense of justice and order that will hopefully give people liberty and freedom and to be able to live lives apart from fear and those kind of things. And it does mean like death and destruction and war, but like ultimately it's like for a sense of order, like order and justice and lawfulness. And what we see in contrast is like places like Wislar came up, where like literally it's so lawless that there is supposedly like whole cults that are just like kidnapping children off the streets to eat them.
Yep. Or put him
Like
to work.
or put them to work.
Yeah.
And she's like lucky enough that she's one of these orphans who's not even an orphan.
Yeah. It's just
But
the
she's like
parents
one
are
of these
just like, we don't
orphans.
want you anymore.
Yeah.
Basically.
Yeah, their only rule is that if the parents don't want you, they just have to wait till you're 5, and then they can kick you out of the
Yeah,
house.
they just
leave
yep.
you on the street.
Yep.
Yep. And notably, the reason why she wasn't wanted was just because she wasn't a boy, right?
Yep.
Like she's pretty plain about that. And so she happens to be like kidnapped by a cult who's not really a cult, but actually just sort of the religion of those people is just sort of fallen out of favor. And so she just kind of like put to work basically. She's just like almost like old school Britain, like you're now going to get forced into the monastery. Here you go. And that's kind of what happens to her. And so they realize that she is quite a talent as a dancer, and so they actually teach her how to be a dancer of shadows, which is very fascinating. Where the whole point of the dance is not for people to watch the dancer, but to watch her shadow.
Hmm.
Which then brings up other things, right? Because we have, the rope Cotillion, who is the assassin in the Warren of Shadow, whose previous name was Dancer. And so now we kind of know maybe a little bit more about like where that name comes from and why
I was
that's the
gonna say,
case.
yeah. It's to me like if I had to wrap up like one thing, one major thing that ties together just like the themes or the importance of this part of the book, or probably going forward, is like
Yep.
Shadow. Shadow in
Yep.
general. There are so many
Yep.
different threads that lead to Shadow, and there's a lot of like misinterpretation too, and like, well, we think we're the right way, and like who's in charge of
Well,
Shadow, and who's sitting in the throne of
yep.
Shadow, and all of
Well,
this.
I wouldn't say it's misinterpretation. Um, Shadow Throne in some ways like does not belong
Mm.
because they've taken over an unoccupied Warren, but there's a new question that's been brought up, which is that what happens if it's unoccupied because the ascendant is not there but comes back? And so that's kind of the open question. And so if that were to happen, then Shadow Throne doesn't belong there anymore. And then who leads the Warren of Shadow? So it's kind of an interesting question. And so what we kind of see through Lestara Yill's story is that the Malazans come in, they conquer the town, they install order, but they eliminate all of the cults except hers because hers is an official religion for that city. But notably, because it's a religion of shadow, there's some investigation that goes on, and the one who leads that investigation is none other than Quickben. And so Lestar Yill has actually met Quickben and presumably Kalam. I don't remember if he was expressly named, but presumably Kalam or somebody kind of like that who is an assassin who works for that order. I think it was Kalam.
So I
Yeah,
don't it's been so long since I read that
yeah.
part, but and maybe this is something after what you're speaking of, but Dalat was someone that was sent as an assassin.
Dalat, but that no, Dalat is Quickben. That's Quickben's name. I'm pretty sure.
So I don't know why I wrote down Dancer, sent specifically by Kellenved.
Yeah. Okay. So maybe I'm misremembering, but I thought Dalat was. Yeah, Dalat is Quickben.
Oh, so I
And
don't.
yeah, and you're right. Dancer. I think Dancer was the other one.
Oh, they went to.
I,
Okay, they went together.
yeah.
Oh
But yeah,
yeah,
no,
I
but
see. I see.
yeah, but yeah, but
There
yeah,
was two of
Quick
them
Ben
then.
is the one who goes there, and he's the one who kind of approaches them. He's got what's the right way to say it? He's at the olive branch.
Mm,
Like, he's there legitimately because remember, Quickben was originally a high priest for Shadow Throne.
mm-hmm.
And I don't know at this point, but anyway, or for the Warren of Shadow, I mean. And so, but he goes there kind of extending the olive branch, like investigate it, make sure that it's, you know, nothing weird's going on, so to speak. And of course, we kind of get insight into really why Quickben was there, which is that they were pretty sure that it wasn't up to snuff because the current high priest who was leading it was kind of a little shit. And so, and notably, that high priest is actually now in the core contingent of the whirlwind. He's one of the three main mages that follows the Shaik. And
Bitathol,
so,
right?
Bidethal, that's right.
Bitathol.
And so now we know that Lestar Yill is connected to Quickben. We know that she's connected with, in some sense, the Claw, connected with the Warren of Shadows through her dance, which was for Rashawn, which is the name. And we also found out that there are a few like pretty seminal figures of ascendants, and like Meneus and Rashawn
I think
and
that's the part
others.
that's like
Yeah,
confusing to me. Of like
yeah,
all of them are like
yeah,
different realms manifestation of
yep.
Shadow is how they talk about it. But like, so like,
But yeah, we're not really
Bidethol like
sure.
doesn't like the other names because he believes in
Yep.
Rashawn. But they're all
Yep.
are they all in contention for the throne that's on, which we later learn is on like Drift of Ali. That's like because
Yeah,
that's like the
it's
throne of Shadow, right?
yep.
Specifically.
But we're just, at this point we're not really sure what I mean. At least from when I was reading through it, it wasn't really we're not really. I don't think we're meant to be sure what's kind of going on. At this point, we have these names and we know there's significance and there's contention, but I don't think it's really been revealed to us, but I think it's going to be because it keeps kind of being brought up in a lot of the different plot lines. And I think ultimately, whatever this is that we're going to find out later, I think that's going to be kind of a core tie-in to why Cotillion's on the move. While all of a sudden he's reaching out to a bunch of different places.
And then
And
so Curald, the Curald Erlatan or whichever one. That is also the Warren
Really?
of is that the Warren of Shadow that's been fractured, or is it a different one?
The one that is the one that's been fractured, but I don't know specifically where that comes from.
Yeah,
I
but
don't know if it
it's
was
just interesting
specifically
that the Warren of Shadow, if it is,
Mhm.
it is specifically Shadow, not like Dark. I can't remember.
No, it's Warren of Shadow.
Okay, so the fact that that's
'cause there's
also
a-
fractured,
Yeah.
and there's all these other different,
Mhm.
gods of Shadow that different people worship. I don't know if that is relevant to that or not, but because all the other Warrens and stuff kind of seem to have like one.
Right. But then you have like
intact
the
Warren.
Warren of Dark, which is like the Tisti Idur, Tisti Andy, and all that, and then you have like the Warren of Shadow, and you have like this fracturing, and so yeah, no, it is really fascinating, and I mean, I was trying to stay as much with it as I could, but I think at this point we're not. I don't think all the ties have been really knotted together yet, so I don't think we're really meant to have all the pieces, so to speak. I think we're meant to have breadcrumbs. We're getting the breadcrumbs of an overarching theme that's going to bring these groups together.
Yeah.
It
It seems like ultimately the Throne of Shadow is currently unoccupied. And
yes,
there are
and under
multiple.
contention.
Yeah, exactly. Yep.
Yeah, and so the kind of last thing with her is that this is another character that then Cotillion ropes in, but he ropes in, and he's able to do so. We find out because Luostariel has this practice whenever she's nervous of going back to her dance, and that it's its own kind of exercise of the Warren. And so Cotillion has probably been watching her for some time, kind of trying to pick his moment to reach out. And finally, when she is nervous after being given this plan through Pearl, she's practicing the dance. And so Cotillion notably reaches out to her to try to convince her to be willing to help him out. But yeah, I love the fact that like Lestariel at first is kind of contentious about this thing because she wants to do things like out of loyalty for the Empire, and notably now we understand where that loyalty comes from, because they were ultimately able to spare her and give her purpose and place. But also it's kind of interesting because she still harbors these judgments against people like Kalam, people like Quick Ben and like the Bridge Burners, the people like that, because she also knows that they were involved in bringing down the cult of Rashan, and she's like conflicted over that as well. And so I thought that was really fascinating.
Yeah, I think so too. Something else that Cotillion mentions is that basically he has his own motives separate from Shadow Throne, but we don't really know what those are. He notes there that Shadow Throne is way more consumed by revenge than he is, and he's got his own plans. Because we don't really know what he asks of her specifically, right? But he also notes he doesn't want her to tell Pearl, so it's just between them, whatever it is. But yeah, I found that interesting too with Shadow Throne, and it seems like they were always like a unit, basically, felt like, and now Cotillion's almost kind of doing his own thing a little bit. Still, I think he kind of makes it seem like it's still in the path of the Empire, but just less fueled by revenge than Shadow Throne. Because Shadow Throne's building his little child army right now.
And I get the feeling that whatever was the initial, like the ambitions that really tied that group together, I get the feeling that both Lacine and Dancer have not given up on those. Like whatever their plans are, I think both of them still hold these initial principles paramount. Like she's ultimately still doing what she believes is right to achieve these goals that they set out for, and I think Dancer is too. And so I think that's really fascinating because the feeling we kind of get from him is that like he's fine with Lysine ruling as long as it's like still moving things in the right direction. He's not someone who would be choosing revenge over, whatever this good is that they're like pursuing.
Yeah.
Um,
I
so I
also
thought that
wrote
was really
down that
fascinating.
I don't know if there's a very good chance I may have just misunderstood, but at some point, Cotillion mentions that the Talons are extinct. Like the Talon, I think Lasara asked him about it or something. He's like, no, they're gone, and she clearly knows that they are not at this
Yeah,
point,
so
but she doesn't like fight it. She
yeah,
doesn't.
I think they're both right because the revelation we get from Corbulo Dom at the end, or sort of near the end, I think kind of reveals to us that both are right. The
Mm,
Talons are dead, but the name Talon is not.
mm. So
So I think,
go into
yeah.
that real quick because that's really the
Yeah.
only thing with Camus Relo and Corbolo Dom is like what their plan is.
Um, yeah. So basically, we kind of get this revelation from Corbulo Dom and Camus Rouleau, which they're part of a group, but it's very clear that they are going to have every other member of that group killed. So
It's a mess
yeah,
because they're
yeah,
like
it's a mess.
Malazan turned traitor to work for the Whirlwind,
Yep.
turned traitor to work for the Malazan, turned traitor to then take over the Malazan.
Yeah.
It's just
Yeah.
like
It's
my
this.
goodness, guys! Like
Yeah.
Jesus Christ. Yeah, their plan
It's the
is
most
hilarious.
convoluted plan.
Yeah, they're like,
You
all
know.
right. So I wrote down what their plan is. It's work with Febril,
Yep.
who's one of the mages, basically.
One of the three. Yep.
Yep. So that Febril kills Shaik.
Yep.
Then Tavor will kill Febril.
Yep.
Then they kill Tavor and save Lysine by crushing the rebellion.
Yep.
Then they get close to Lysine and assassinate her and take over the
Mhm.
empire and then exterminate all other races.
Yeah.
That's basically what their plan is. So
Yeah,
it's
and so
like,
that's kind
sure,
of what I was
buddy.
talking about earlier with like the antithesis is like they represent kind of the same ideal of like universal order, but it's not order for lawfulness, it's
Yeah.
order for lawlessness.
Yep.
And they want total order through complete unification by basically eliminating all other opposition, all other ideologies, all other races, all other religions, everybody who's not them or in line with them.
A little Hitler-esque
And just
going on.
yeah, and so that's the whole idea. And so we get that revelation from them. So now we know that there's this competing faction. It also again too like it's one of those things where I know if you like want to put a historical spin on what we're seeing in these stories, you can obviously do a lot of contrast with our own story. And I'm not saying like the empire is like right per se in the way that they're going about things, but I think it is an interesting facet of the world that it is a gray area. Yes, this land originally belonged to these people. They have rebelled to reclaim that land, which was rightfully theirs. At the same time, they are a total mess. They encourage rule by power. They encourage betrayal. They encourage total hedonism. Like they do not have like a real sense of unity, other than this rebellion and seemingly the Shaikh, which is probably how they got conquered in the first place. Um, but at the same time, it's like how much of that is really being encouraged by people like Kobul Odam and Camus Rouleau, who thrive off of that, right? So it's really interesting. The last thing that they tell us as well is that they have been organizing this for some time, and so it's you kind of get this idea that really them serving in the high ranks within the Malazan Empire was also largely a way for them to try to start undermining the empire by getting nobles back into positions of authority. So again, this classic thing of like go after the Malazans by getting nobles to lead because they're crap at it because they
Mhm.
only ever choose themselves. And so in order to get them into these positions and keep them there, they've been resurrecting the Talons. And that's why I was saying that I really think that like Bodden was kind of probably like the last true
The
Talon to
actual
die.
last one, yeah.
Yep.
And
Yeah.
so Carbolo and them they're resurrecting the name Talon, and
Yep.
putting new people into that role, but not actual Talons, but just
Yeah.
like what they did. Because they were always. I think Tavor talked about it. They were always the ones working with the nobles hired them, and that's why the Claw were ordered to. I'm assuming hunt them down and exterminate them because.
Yeah. Well, I think because I don't think that was originally the case. I think the Talons were Dancer's loyal contingent of assassins, and so the Claws killed them because they were. I mean, that's kind of what they do. You always take out that element, right? But they were the most significant threat to Lycian's coup d'état, and so they had to be eliminated for better or for worse. They had to be eliminated and replaced by the Claw, and then they were labeled as traitors. But so is Kellenved, so is Dancer.
So you think that's when they started being hired? Because I mean,
I think they were being hired because Corbeau Dom is resurrecting the Talons for the exact purpose of getting the noble houses back into positions of military authority to have an easier to rule class, because they can be easily manipulated, they can be bribed, right? And so that's going to be able to allow him to have an authority. If he assassinates Lycine, then now he's got the noble houses to lean on, and he can rule through them. And so the Talons just help kind of eliminate any opposition that might, anybody tries to harm them, the Talons can kill them. If there's an officer who is a captain and your noble is a lieutenant, get the captain assassinated, the lieutenant gets promoted, kind of thing. I think that's their role. And Baden was notably the son of a very loyal Talon. And so that's why I kind of say that he was probably the last true Talon that actually lived.
Interesting, yeah. So I'll be curious to see, because we don't have any names of any of the new ones or anything, to see if any of those will pop up in the rest of the book or at all. Because I am assuming,
and I could be totally wrong.
Just taking a risk here, but I don't think Corbeau Dom's plan is going to play out like that.
That's the rest of the series.
That's what,
This is Corbeau Dom.
Corbeau Dom. He becomes the main character. Yeah. Something tells me that may not happen, but
no.
Yeah. So last stuff for Lestar and Pearl, because really that's kind of like the Malazan side of things. Then we've got the Whirlwind side of things, and then we've got a few other factions, if you will. But basically, then they're still on their mission to go find Felison. So this is kind of the scene we were talking about where they meet with Stormy and Getzler and Truth and whatever, and they kind of separate out. I think even Pearl tells her to basically seduce someone, use her body to get the real answers of what happened to Felison and Hebrig and Baden.
Yep.
So they get two different stories, both of which are they are dead. They were on the ship with the three guys, Getzler, Stormy, and Truth, and they didn't make it. But then they go to the ship. They go to the Solanda, which is the ship from Deadhouse Gates that they were all on, and they kind of just figure out that they probably aren't dead, but they probably just hopped off, and where they hopped off was somewhere in the desert, probably near Raraku, and that's where they decide to go continue their quest, if you will, to hunt them down.
Yeah, that ship. It's like how many times can we revisit the same scene from different perspectives?
I know.
It's kind of funny at this point.
Yeah.
I think this is the one thing that has been. I don't think any other event or scene has been portrayed this many times.
Yeah,
where we saw it, didn't really know what happened. Then we got the explanation for what happened.
Well, this is a different one though, right? Because this isn't the one with the. This is the one, because I thought this was the one that they were on when they were going through the warren with the dragon and thing.
Yeah. This is the same. This is the same ship that Karsa was on, where he stabbed that guy with a spear.
Oh yeah, okay. For some reason, I was thinking it was
all the same ship,
because I know they went to that ship, but for some reason I was thinking they left on a different ship. But and the heads are because they go down and see the heads are still there.
On
right?
the ship.
Yeah, Karsa.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But this is the ship they left on. This is the same one that Karsa killed all the Tista Eater on. It's all the same ship. And so
crazy. But yeah, so that's kind of where we leave Lestar and Pearl, which they're heading into the desert. But then let's. So do you want to do? I feel like the natural progression is to now talk about the Whirlwind, because a lot of these characters have the overlap here.
Yep.
With especially with like Heberick and Shaik and stuff like that. So that might be a nice natural place to go from there.
Yeah, so with the whirlwind, it's kind of fascinating because we're actually not really spending that much time from the perspective of the Shaik. I mean, really not really at all. So we go to the whirlwind, and we're really just focusing on things from two different perspectives in a way, where we're focusing on things mainly through Heberick, through his experiences, and then we also are seeing some perspectives from Karsa and Leomin. More so Karsa, it feels like, than Leomin actually. And so now, so a couple of things are basically happening. We're focusing on Heberick, and we get this depiction that the Shaik is kind of holed up. They're waiting out. Nobody really knows why, but they're waiting out. They're training. She has formed a close contingent with Bidithal, the one with the F name who I always forget,
Febril,
Febril, and Lothic.
Yep.
And the only one of them that can be trusted to any degree is Lothic.
Yep.
And he can only be trusted because he can be trusted in his own self-interest. Whereas the other ones are schemers. One of them is, now we know Bidithal, I believe Bidithal is a pedophile.
Yep.
And so these are not people who can be trusted in any capacity. But they have a lot of authority and influence. And so ultimately she works with what she has. On top of all of that, the other thing is that the Shaik is just basically biding time, trying to learn information. She's taking another person who's taking on a lot of children, adopting all of the orphans under protection, and kind of forming kind of her own house in a way.
Bro, her calling the
the Felson the Younger.
Yeah, it took me like an embarrassing amount of time to be like, which one is Felison? Like, because then there's times where they just call her Shaik, and then there's times they call her Felison, and then it's like Felison older, Felison younger, and like
pretty
I'm
much
there
anytime
now.
they say
but like
seems like pretty much anytime they say Felison, it's Felison the Younger.
Yes.
So it's either Shaik / Felison the Older, or it's just.
But they've called Shaik Felison in that part, especially in the beginning when it's like both of them there. And I'm just like, who the fuck is who? Like, and because like Felison the Older, now Shaik, is like not really there kind of anymore, right? Shaik is basically like taking over her body.
There's like moments
Yeah.
where Felison kind of breaks through.
And then Felison Younger is just an entirely different person, was just a young girl on the street that was adopted by Shaik, and then she named her Felison.
Yep.
Because God damn it, why can't be? Because nothing can be easy. Like people that had names are getting new names, and not only that, we're giving old names to new characters to just keep you on your toes and make sure that nothing is easy. Like it's a nice gesture, but like, God dang it.
Who's that actor from It's Always Sunny who they always do the meme with, where he's like got
Charlie Day, dude, for real.
Charlie Day, yeah.
Oh my gosh, that's what this part really. I mean, like I've read it, I've gone through my notes multiple times, and I'm still just like, it's like the important stuff will reveal itself. I know getting into the minutia of things isn't like necessary. It's fun, but yeah, sometimes I'm still just like even on a reread, I'm sure I'd be like, okay, but like this, I'm there now on the Felison Younger, the Felison Older, but like it had been an entire book, a novel, that's happened at the end of Deadhouse Gates, to where when they first started talking about them within sentences of each other, I was like, wait, who? Like, wait, doesn't she have the memories of like what happened in Deadhouse? And I'm like, all right, we're there. I'm there now. But jeez, yeah.
Yep. So, but this kind of plot line, it's okay. So the other theme that is centric of this book is this like theme of rebirth, and the way that we're currently seeing this theme being played out is by literally having all of the events of Deadhouse Gates be repeated in some fashion. So the events of what happened with Ellison and Bodden and Heberick, we are now seeing that get replayed through Listral, Yill, and Pearl. the events of the Chain of Dogs. We're seeing that get replayed in reverse through Tavor. And then once again, now we're seeing there's this push to try to get Heberick to leave the whirlwind with Felison the Younger and a protector for her, which would be like Heberick, Felison, and Bodden all over again. Now, why would that be the case? So we find out that Heberick is both developing and digressing at the same time. He is significantly more wise, able to use his sights and his hands, but his body is becoming more frail, and his natural vision is really going away.
Yeah.
So he is like
Practically,
deteriorating,
blind.
and yeah, practically blind, and he's basically having to use a special kind of tea in order to try to, I mean,
Tripping
essentially
balls,
almost like
man.
yeah, basically like an opioid or a psychedelic in a way to try to just like help him sleep. And what he doesn't realize is that whatever happened to him in the desert when he touched this jade statue is essentially like gnawing at him, and as his body deteriorates, more of that force, that will, is fighting to escape. That's like what's kind of told to us, that his body operates like a prison, keeping this will behind, and it's getting him these abilities, but at the same time it yearns to escape. And so as his body gets weaker, he's going to be haunted more by nightmares and things like this.
Specifically
and so,
too, because there's Otatrol in him, I guess, right?
Yep.
Because remember when he touched the jade statue, like
Yep.
yeah, so like that's fading, and that's ultimately is going to be what lets whatever's inside of him out, and it will kill him. Basically, Felison Younger tells him like it's going to kill you, so we gotta go back.
Yeah, and so the idea is like you got to go back to the mines, like to get more like Otatarol, and so it's like literally like reversing the journey in a way, which is really fascinating. But of course, Heberick is very reluctant to try to do that. But we see that Felison the Younger has really changed. It's not really explained why, but it's implied that likely the Shaikh is having a pretty significant influence on her development, and so her character is being reshaped in many ways, and so she's like maturing a lot more quickly. She's becoming a lot more knowledgeable, especially about things like magic, and she's also becoming very, very attached to Heberick, and he in turn, is becoming very attached to her, and so he's very protective of her, and so.
And he also
she's
knows
very
that
like,
Bidethal is basically wanted to
Mhm.
do super inappropriate things to her. So he's like, would it be so bad if I went with her and
Yes.
like got her away from this fucking creep? That is, yeah. So that's
And that's the
another
other thing
part
is like and so that's kind of the other thing too, is like we're being told these things, but we're also not really sure how. I mean, they're likely legitimate, but like to what extent? It's kind of interesting because there's definitely like a movement to try to encourage Heberick to leave.
Mhm.
So on one hand, it's like that might be made up in order to encourage, but like in order to encourage Heberick to leave, specifically with Felison, because I think what my prediction is that Lorik and Leomin are both pushing Heberick to leave because they also want Felison the Younger to be safe. But then it might actually be true that Bidethal does actually want to go after Felison the Younger, both out of spite, but also because notably that would create a threat to her that would get Heberick involved, and he wants Heberick to be eliminated. So it's like, it's really interesting how there's all these different kind of pushes, but ultimately the goal is the push is to try to get Heberick to leave. But he's very reluctant to do so. But the longer he stays, like the more painful it is for him as well. So we see this, and notably, he's being pushed to go. The Shaikh is largely ignoring his advice and Leomin's advice and Karsa's advice, and each of them are also in their own ways being pushed to leave.
Yep.
And ultimately, this serves the grand scheme of people like Gobel Odam and Kalis Ro, who want these people to leave because that takes more allies off the board from the Shaikh, and then ultimately makes it easier for them to manipulate her and then to see her killed. And so, yeah.
Yeah, a couple other notable things with Heberick. When he goes to meet with Bidethal, Silgar is outside the tent, who was
Yes, yeah.
Karsa's prisoner, the guy hunting
Yep.
Karsa, the limbless
Yep.
Sogar. But he specifically had drawn Heberic in the sand, surrounded by chains.
Yep.
Don't exactly know what that means yet, but
Yep.
seems significant,
Yeah.
especially with the House of Chains being
Yes.
obviously the name of
I
the
know.
book. And
I feel
being
really
formed.
bad now, like when we were supposed to read this book, because these guys, people with like disabilities. But now every single time I see someone who's like got a dismemberment or is like a paraplegic, I'm like, don't trust them. Don't trust that disabled guy because there's the
House of Chains. House of Chains. Yeah, what message are you trying to send, Steven Erickson? So another thing is when he meets with Shaik, he does withhold. He knows that Paran is now the master of the deck.
Yep.
Intentionally does not tell Shaik. But there is a moment where they are all kind of meeting, and she hears. So Shaik, this is an instance of her having some memories. They hear that Paran is still alive.
Yep.
Not as the master of
however-
deck, just that he lives.
Yeah.
And that really, like, she ends the meeting just to weep with Heberic, which is
the actual Falastin kind of comes out.
exactly, yeah. Which is really interesting because it's like, how much control does she have? How much is she actually in there? But also notable because nothing is easy. Again, there are spies. The Whirlwind's got spies on the Malazan side, somehow reporting back to them about everything that has happened in Memories of Ice and all of that. They're just like, oh yeah, we know all that because we got spies. I'm like, okay, that's crazy.
Yeah. And these would specifically need to be spies that are actually with that contingent. So the same contingent that's now probably coming with Jujek. Like there are spies in that because because otherwise, like if they're just like in Malad City or whatever, they would not know that Paran survived.
Who was the guy that I'm blanking on his name, but who's the guy that killed Whiskey Jack? He's like the old. He's been alive for thousands of years and obviously evil.
Oh.
Like, could it be just him? Because I mean, he was there
he
for all
leaves
the
too
events.
but he left too early, right? Because he left right after he killed Whiskey Jack. He would know what actually happened with the Seer. He wouldn't know what happened with Paran, and like he wouldn't know about the downfall of the others. Like for example, like Hedge dying and the other bridge burners dying. Like all of that happened.
But doesn't that kind of make sense though, right? Because it's being reported that Paran is alive. So like, couldn't that be before the bridge burners died? Or I guess it could be the bridge burners are dead, but he's still alive.
Yeah, that's the thing is they reported only those surviving bridge burners. That was the thing. It was because they were like, the bridge burners dead except these bridge burners. So they would have to know that. And
like,
then
wouldn't you need like you'd have to have access to, I'm assuming, like some kind of warrant.
Yep.
Or something to be able to report those types of things, or maybe we'll find out because they're Whiskey or Quick Ben and Kalam have communicated via that whatever they called it, knuckle in the hole or something.
Yeah, the knuckle in the hole.
The knuckle in his hole.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's one of those things that it's
later.
like we probably won't ever. I mean, maybe we will, but I think that's just one of those things. Is like they probably just have ways, and that's okay. But it is interesting and also just ultra confusing. Not confusing, but just like the layers of betrayal within each side. There's only two sides to this thing. But there are there are people that are on one side working for the other side that are actually betraying the one side to then work for the other side. And it's just like, man, make up your minds. Like, do you want it one way or do you want it the other? Yeah. But it is super interesting.
Was it Calor? Was that him?
Calor. Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, Calor. Yeah.
But part of me wonders, maybe we can talk about it in predictions, but like, is it someone of significance? Is it Tayshrin or something that, because he was there at the end, right?
So I'll bring it back up again, but
bring it up again.
I honestly think it might be, and I think that Lorik
might be what?
I think it might be Tayshrin, and I think Lorik actually works with him, and that he's feeding this information to continue to garner trust.
Because Tayshrin went from like, I hate him to like, oh, I get him. I get it. Like we were just fed, we were just under the wrong impression. But now it's like, yeah, if it's back to him, it's like another one. It's just like, no, don't you dare think I'm good. I'm bad.
Yeah.
But
No,
Lork also
I
seems
think
good.
no, I think he's good. I think he's giving that information to
Oh, you
Lork
think
to
Lork
relay
is the one?
to continue to establish his position. I think they're feeding in information that ultimately is not as significant or like does not have immediate consequences because it continues to cement Lork's position so that way he can continue to keep working within like I think he's a double agent working for the good guys.
Yeah, it
And
was like
so
quadruple agents at this
yeah,
point.
yeah. So, but yeah, no, I mean, that was one of my predictions. Is like, what if, you got like people like Tayshun who are like feeding, or even Quick Ben who are like feeding in this
Not
information.
Quick Ben.
It could be,
No.
and they're feeding in this information, and then Lorik is giving the information over because then it continues to help the like these people of the World One trust Lorik, so they don't
Oh,
suspect
I
him.
see what you're saying.
Yeah,
Yeah. So
yeah.
Lork is the one that's like, it's not that they have a spy. It's that they.
He's
I
choosing
know
what
you're saying.
information to give, so that way they continue to trust him, so he can continue to operate within their ranks, and ultimately at the right time, be able to like spring a trap, basically, right? Like thwart the people like Corbelow who actually really need to go down. And so, because I think ultimately, they don't like Lorik, we know that, and I think that ultimately he does not like them, and he's there to like see them get eliminated.
Lork has a really interesting part with Heberick too. The last time, it's
Yep.
basically the final conversation between the two of them, in which they talk about the Otatoro mines and the Jade statue origins and all that. But like I don't know if you felt it, but like to me there was like a weird tension in that scene with like him brewing the tea for Heberick. Felt really like, I don't know. Something like, I don't know if he put something in his tea. It just seemed a little like suspicious to me. And they kept talking about like how Heberick was just like listening to him brew the tea, and I don't know. It just felt a little suspicious to me.
Yeah, I took that in a different direction. Because we know now from Corbelow that the tea is actually not good for Heberick.
Mm-hmm.
It's actually causing him to deteriorate faster, and so Lorik seems pretty like obsessed with getting the tea actually away from Heberick. Like when Heberick comes back, he tries to get it from Heberick, and that's why Heberick lies and says he doesn't have any. And then he tells Heberick like I'll brew the tea, but then he just keeps not. The thing was he
Just
wasn't
brews
brewing
it
the tea.
forever. Yeah, like
Yeah, exactly. He
brews it.
just wasn't. Yeah, exactly. He was like letting it like steep forever. And so it's just that was
At
kind of
least during
interesting.
their
Like
conversation, right? Because that's a
yes,
pretty important
exactly.
conversation. That makes
Yep.
sense. Like he's trying to keep his mind clear for the important conversation.
Um,
Yeah.
But then when that ends, the feeling that I got was that whatever Lorik tells Heberick, which we don't hear, it like completely enraptures and like wins over Heberick. And then
Yeah,
I'm
he
sitting there
reveals
thinking
something
like,
to him.
right, like what would he reveal that Heberick would like be so now trusting of this individual who, for all intents and purposes, we know is someone who's like portrayed as being clever, conniving, is very self-interested.
I mean, that would make sense with your theory that he's
Yeah.
getting the information from the Malazan and kind of actually working for the Malazans. But yeah, I mean, yeah, a lot. But their conversations also, it's cool hearing so we learn their origin of the jade hands. It's not just hands. We learned there are gigantic jade statues. There were 3 that all arrived just from some other realm. They just TP'd in. They got sent there or something. We don't really know. And that they were trapped there by the Otatoro.
Yeah. See, what really happened, we just didn't realize this, was that actually the world of Malazan is being made by a AAA company, and they just never worked that bug out. So the spawns, they just don't work. So, but they're charging $70 for it, so it's okay.
There you go, yeah. The end is just, it zooms out and Steven Eriksen's like coding. Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
But
Yeah.
go ahead. You go.
Well, I was just gonna say it's interesting because they just both have different theories of what even happened. Because basically, Heberick is saying that the Otatoro. There's a theory that exists that the Otatoro basically was just like created because the statues were sent in as like some sort of. He compares it to the ritual of the
Yep.
calling down of the crippled god, and the
Yep.
ritual of Talon, like something so
Yep.
powerful that sucks all of the magic out that it actually formed the Otatoro.
Yeah. Which like for Dune fans, this is kind of funny. Whereas like, because like in Dune, it's like the spice is like basically coming from like dead worms,
Mm.
and so it's just like it's like where does it come from? Dead ascendants. You
Yeah.
know,
Basically,
in a
yeah.
way, right?
Could be. I mean,
Uh,
because right, it's just a theory. We don't actually know
Yep.
one way or the other. They're
Mm-hmm.
they're basically opposite theories. One is the Otatoro was there to trap these statues, and the other ones it was created because of the statues.
Yep.
So
Yep.
who knows what
Um,
the hell all that means with, especially for Heberick, like
Mhm.
because I think at least me, I was definitely thinking it was more of like there was a connection to Fenner, and when he touched it, that's when
Yeah.
like Fenner
Well-
had something to do with that.
And well, now it's like significantly more concerning because just to layer on even more, now not only do you have characters and betrayals and the sentence work in the background, you can't even trust freaking statues anymore. Any given statue could just be some trapped ascendant or minion for servant for a particular ascendant. Where it's like, yeah, they're jade statues. They're statues, but they're also like housing the very essence of these things, and it's just like it's like the weeping angels from Doctor Who. Like now you can't, if you see one, you got to keep your eyes on it. You know,
Yeah,
you can't look away.
It's crazy.
It's it just yeah. I love how you know, I have to think that like now, if Hebert survives through all of this, you know, I would imagine that like a Gothic cathedral would be like his worst nightmare. He walks up, there's like gargoyle statues everywhere.
No. Yeah.
No.
I'm really curious about Heberick because the him being surrounded by the chains doesn't fare well for him. I don't think.
No.
I don't want Heberick to turn bad, but it does seem like there's a possibility that though Totoro runs out and whatever's in him kind of takes over Heberick, and it's not Heberick anymore, but
Yep.
then he goes to the House of Chains or something. But I don't want that to happen, so I'm not going to think about it, and then it won't. But speaking of statues that house something in them that's not actually what the statue portrays, should we talk about? Well, there's a couple. Really, that's in the Onrak Troll Sengar storyline,
Yep.
but I don't really know where do you want to go. We should do Karsa and Leoman. We should do Karsa.
Yeah, I think we should do
because they're still
Karsa.
part of like the whirlwind over there,
Yep.
kind of.
So, so with Karsa now, of course, we saw this kind of whole journey with Karsa, and that took place like from when he started his journey to like sort of now 3 years, and then once again this sort of idea of rebirth, where now Karsa is being encouraged to go to the Jagged Odin or Odin, where he is to find like kind of an old jagged war horse,
Yeah.
and then ultimately to kind of ride back as a way to kind of rally their troops into action. And so now he's all of a sudden once again like leaving to go west from his now home, and it kind of has this resemblance of when he first left on his journey. And one of the things that we kind of see, we actually have like one kind of meeting between him and Heberick, but he's been like making these statues now, and we're not really sure necessarily like it's like kind of like out of wood.
I think
or
they're
maybe
carved
more-
out of like tree trunks, basically.
Yep, yep. And so he's been making these statues, and the first two statues that he made were of his companions that he lost during his first journey. And so we was his Bayroth and Delim, and we see like how that's really like weighed on his soul that he had in his maturity, that he had left for this glory, and he brought them along, and he kind of realizes that it was all in vain, that the glory they were seeking was not true, and the thing that he squandered was the real glory that was happening, which was this like these two amazing people with their talents and their feats and their friendship and their trust, like the time he had with them and what they were able to accomplish together, like that story was what was important, not this like serving Urugal and all of that. And that he kind of becomes to understand like, oh, these guys are probably like full of crap, right? They're out for their own purposes.
Yeah.
But he forms these statues, but then he starts carving out statues for each of the 7 faces. And he doesn't quite remember how exactly how they look except for Urgal. But then as he kind of feels this push, and suggestion from Leoman to actually go west, he's contemplating it and kind of meditating with the statues, and then all of a sudden the statue sort of manifests with the essence of Urgal, and he can feel the 7 present with him, and they're encouraging him to go to Jagged Alden. Now we don't really know why they're okay with that.
Yeah, because I kind of remember they're wanting him to continue the quest to free them, and he's like,
Yes.
"No, I'm gonna go here. I'm going to the Jagged Odon." And internally, they're like, "Okay," and that's exactly where they want him to go. Hey, he doesn't really know that's exactly where they want him to go, but
You win this one, Carson.
yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, because he's kind of very just on the ropes with them. He does not trust them fully like he used to.
Yeah.
But kind of like by carving them in the trees, he has transported them to, they can now embody that, or not embody, but like they can appear there where they couldn't just appear there before, which is interesting because how could they? That's what it made it seem like, at least. But they were on the ship.
Yeah, they can. Yeah, they can like basically manifest themselves through that statue now and like communicate with him.
How did they manifest themselves on the ship?
No, I think they were. I thought they were like actually there because they were being hunted. Remember, like they couldn't be hunted if they weren't actually there.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Like when they manifest, they're just like sending out their like whatever. Yeah, I see what you're saying. Okay.
Yeah. It's like they're kind of like there in spirit in a way. They're they're doing
But
like
to
the
me,
Doctor Strange.
I guess for some reason I just always thought like because their whole goal is to be freed.
Yep.
Right. So like if their bodies are just already free, even though they're being hunted, what are they really being freed from?
Yeah, I guess the question there is we don't really know that's like their body per se. I suppose like maybe it is as their spirits walk free in a way.
Yeah, or maybe they just couldn't be in like I don't know. The grove was so sacred they couldn't just choose to appear there because it is like a sacred place for Karsa. It becomes a place. It's a really strange place, a really cool place with all the snakes and stuff, and he meets with a couple people there. But before we get to his meeting with Shaik, because I did find it a fairly important meeting in that grove, Leoman, when he's there, Leoman tells his plan as well. Basically, Shaik is sending him out to scout out the Malazans, which Leoman's not been in very good favor with the Shaik. He's no longer a bodyguard of hers. And he really the whole plan was for him to uncover. Shaik also doesn't know if Febro is going to betray her, but Leoman, they do. Basically, the plan is that he wants to uncover that to get back into the good graces of the Shaik. But basically, he's going to, seems like, disobey and go do something. We don't really know, but he's not going to just go scout. He's just going to, basically, once he's outside of the whirlwind, she doesn't have any kind of power or can't really see what he's doing anymore. So he's going to go do something. We don't really know. In which Karsa is going to meet up with him after getting the horse. Yep. But Leoman also recognizes his gods for what they really are. He knows what they really are. Doesn't say to Karsa. Yep. Which, again, I think we know that they are Talani Moss.
Yep.
But I don't know if they are very specific ones. I don't know why Leoman would know. I don't know if he's just like, I know what they are or I know who they are.
Yeah. Well, or the way I kind of got a feeling was like he understands their intentions more so than like, oh, I know specifically who these are. It's like he kind of like he recognizes like, no, these are liars. Like that's who these people are.
Yeah,
right?
these just aren't actual real gods. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. That's kind of the feeling I got from it.
Yeah.
And then of course the other crazy thing was that it's not just them that comes, but actually Bayroth and Delum's spirits, who have been like wandering spirits, are now also present with him.
I'm hype about that.
Yeah,
I'm stoked.
Yeah, and it's kind of this fascinating thing because we also kind of we saw Karsa as kind of like kind of like Ikovian, where he's like a man who walks like with many souls in his wake.
Mhm.
And so now it's kind of cool that like Bayroth and Delum are like there, and they walk with him, and that he again has this like maturity where he recognizes what he squandered, and so he apologizes to them
Yeah.
for what happened.
And they give him a lead us war leader
Yep,
kind of thing,
yep,
which is awesome.
hmm hmm
But yeah, I do really like that. I'm
yep,
stoked about that. That they're not gone, really gone. They pulled the whole Star Wars Jedi
yeah,
ghost thing,
uh,
whatever happens in that. But yeah, I found it interesting when Shaik visits Karsa in the Grove, with the snakes and everything, and they kind of have a discussion just about. I think her name's Drijna, the goddess of the whirlwind, who's also has something to do with Shadow.
yeah. So I don't know if you remember, but in Deadhouse Gates, when we see Pearl like run into Duker, there's like this you remember they like the simp god had been like ripped apart, and then there
Mm-hmm.
was like that creature who had a fragment.
Yep.
That's kind of what it seems like, is like Drishna is like basically like one of the land spirits.
Yeah.
Um
But she got the
and
power to kind of take
she
over
she
the other
got
ones,
she got
right?
like a fragment of like a Warren, yeah,
Yeah.
like, or like
Of
a
the
fragment of an
Kuro.
ascendant,
Yeah.
yeah.
Because that's
And
where
so,
that fragment of the
mhm.
of that fractured Warren is in Raruku. So yeah.
And now she's like more powerful for it and able to operate in this way.
Yeah.
Um,
But yeah, I found it interesting because Shaik and him talking like kind of like even Shaik, who is basically like doing the bidding of Drishna, is kind of, I don't know, I'm trying to think of the word, but wants to create, not just destroy. They talk about her poetry and stuff like that, and how Drishna, all she wants to do is destroy, just destruction, chaos. But Shaik is wanting to also create a little bit. Yeah, I just found that interesting, and it seemed like I don't know, this whole book or part two had a lot of like philosophizing in it.
Yep.
But I did find that conversation to be, seems like it's going to be an important one too, with just like who Shaik really is, and even Shaik is like going against what her god or goddess directly wants to do.
Yep.
So yeah, I thought that was a cool scene, and just like this, she's like, I mean, I don't know what the hell the snakes mean, but I like the snakes. Basically, she's afraid of them, and Carson's like, oh, they're, they just got to shuffle and they'll be fine. They're just like
Yeah.
tons of snakes in this garden
yeah.
that are just chilling. It's just like, yeah, as long as you just like do the little snake shuffle, they'll leave you be.
Yep.
But so I don't know if the snakes are relevant at all or anything, but like I did find the Grove to be a pretty iconic, setting or scene.
Yep. Well, and like I mean, yeah, I don't know if like snakes in particular, but it's worth noting that many characters refer to that's the place they're in within the whirlwind as a pit of vipers. That basically it's just everyone, like, it's all venom and betrayal everywhere. You can't trust anybody, and so
Steven Erickson's like, I know what to do. I'm going to put a literal pit of vipers in my
exactly,
pit
there
of
you go.
vipers, but
Yeah,
they're actually going to be loyal to the Malazans.
yeah. See, if only Indiana Jones knew the
Yeah.
little snake shuffle. Yeah, he
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, nothing to be afraid of. I think we got a blast through the rest.
Yeah.
There's still so
Well,
much
so-
more.
Yeah, there is, but as far as some of our other characters, I mean, I feel like right now there's really only like kind of like two other main significant things, because several of the other ones are kind of just like developing. So the next thing that's kind of relevant is we talked about like Onrak and Troll Singar. So normally Troll, I believe, is the person from the prologue.
Yeah. That's sweet.
And Onrak and Troll Singar are in the nascent Warren, which is where the Salanda came from.
Part of the fractured
and-
Kural or
yep.
Lamb or whatever. Or Lamna.
Mhm. And so Onrak actually saves Troll Singar and basically has been dragging him along when they encounter beast statues. And they believe that two of these statues contain the essence of the shadow, the Hounds of Shadow.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which apparently either them or the Hounds of Dark may actually be a Deaver.
Yes.
Which, if that's true,
I think it's the Hounds of
is
Darkness. Yeah.
yeah, or is wild.
Yeah.
And so effectively they end up freeing these beast spirits who it turns out are Hounds of Darkness, and they immediately attack Onrak and just like wreck them.
Yeah. Well, it's so funny too because it reminded me of Tool a little bit,
Yeah.
where Troll's like, I don't think you could fight them,
Yeah.
and Onrak is like, all right, I'm gonna immediately bust open the statue with my sword because I
Yep.
definitely can fight them,
Yep.
and then gets absolutely rocked by them.
Yep. Yep.
And yeah, it just was another moment I was just like, oh my gosh, now there's Hounds of Darkness too. Like there's Hounds of, I didn't even think that there could be. There's so many things.
I love the little tidbit that the Hounds of Shadow don't cast shadows because they are the shadows.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, that
Yeah.
was really
Yeah,
cool.
that's fun.
And that's why they thought it was them, right? Because the statues
Yep.
weren't casting any shadows, so they were like, "Oh,
Yep.
we think it's them." But
Yep.
yeah,
Well, and the Hounds of Dark have been active for
yeah,
a long time, right?
so long that we've never heard of them.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, they break out, destroy
Yep.
him, so
Yep.
much that he
And-
is now shorn.
Yes.
To where basically like now it kind of like forms like almost like a brotherhood between Troll and not to us at least as the reader that
Yep.
probably will eventually, but yeah, he's like cast out from the ritual of Talon, and if they ever find him, they have to like spread his bones and
Yep.
for eternity
So-
or something.
Well, so notably, the only people, according to him, the only people who can like end his current condition is a bone caster.
Mm.
So that's kind of interesting. Of like, they can be damaged so much they become shorn, but they're not killed. But a bone caster can like release
Actually
them.
kill them, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
And that they have a tradition of doing that because, like, I presume they don't have a way to come back from that. They don't have a way to come back from.
Yeah,
that.
that's like exactly.
Yep. So that's like a mercy for them, so to speak.
Yep.
And they do find Talani Moss. I think it's the same Talani Moss who've been hunting the seven gods, but I'm not sure because
Yeah.
I don't know if we've actually been given their names. And just because you love it so much, now we have a whole new TC clan.
Yep.
We got the TC Andy and the TC Dur, and we're also going to find out about the TC Leoson.
Yep.
Which
Which
is great.
also
And-
it was awesome. This part was
Yep.
super cool. But I also found it funny that like the amount of times that Monrath munitions have saved the day or just shown up. Like these things are everywhere. They're just they go to this gate that the hounds were guarding. I think they basically are going across a bridge. There's just like a bunch of like shit rolling down the river. And they're like, "Oh, what's that? What's that box right there?" And he's like, "Oh, I know what these are. They're Monrath munitions. Oh, conveniently placed here just in time for this gate that is sealed and we can't open it. But you know what would work? One of these Monrath munitions we literally just found." But yeah,
Yeah. But now we know why. You know, Fiddler told us. The thing with Moran munitions is that you always have them when you need them.
always have when you need 'em. He's not wrong. But yeah, they blow up the gate, which like opens the warren, and then 4 of the Teist Leosin charge through, and they're white. They're pure.
Yeah.
The white
Yeah.
horses, beautiful. Kind of like remind me of what I think of like elves in Lord of the Rings or something.
Yep,
It's just-
exactly. Yep.
yeah, and they charge through. Onrak tells Troll to flee. He'll stand guard on the bridge. Basically, actually wounds one of them. And then they're basically about to kill him, or try and kill him. And then Troll's like, "Wait, I brought back some other Talani Moss, one of which is a bone caster." And then even this, the bone caster's like, "I gotta kill you. You're shorn." He's like, "Oh, you can't anymore though because now I'm a prisoner of the Osin, and that breaks that rule." And they're like, "No, that's okay. You can go with them. You're not a prisoner anymore." And then he goes. And then they're like, "But wait. We're not going to do any of that because we got to open this, basically the gate by doing some weird ass ritual."
Yep.
So they're going to, okay. So yeah, they are going to They inform the Leosin that their god is lost. Osric,
Yep.
that's their god. Who they're just like, he is the one, or he or she, or
Yeah.
the god.
Yep.
And they're like, well, your god's lost. And so now they need to escape the nascent by forming a gate, using Talon, using Leosin, and using the blood of Troll Sengar. So I don't know how that's gonna work, but I'm excited.
Mhm.
And yeah, I think it's funny. They're like, by the way, Troll, it's not all your blood. Don't worry, you'll be all right. Just a little of your blood.
Yep.
But I thought that everything about that, like, I'm glad. To me, like, that introduction felt really cool for the Leosin. And yeah, I mean, like, we're just expanding further, but like, the triangle is complete. I swear. If Steven Eriksen's like, but it's a square.
Yeah, but it's in 3 dimensions.
Yeah,
now.
yeah, exactly. So now I am assuming there are also Hounds of Light.
Yep.
There must
I think
be.
you should.
Yeah, there
Yeah.
must
No
be.
cats. There's cats of light.
Yeah, the Cats of Light. But yeah, I
think,
thought their storyline was really cool. That
I
whole
like the
storyline.
idea of this like noble horsemen who are like arrogant pricks, but are also just so out of touch with reality.
Oh yeah,
It like justifies them being like total arrogant pricks because they just have no idea what's
been
going
in their
on.
own little echo chamber for who knows how long. Yeah.
Yeah. And then they're just like, no, we can defeat anybody. And then they see like walking skeletons, zombies, and like, no, it's okay. We don't need to fight.
Yeah.
We're good.
We'll release the
Time out.
prisoner. Yeah.
Like, time out.
Yep.
Oh, yeah, just it's so yeah. I'm very very interested to see what's gonna happen with this next one.
Yeah. Even just like the getting the callback. I don't know why, but like Troll Sengar, I was like, I don't know if we necessarily will see him again. But at least Edor and a Talani Moss having like a friendship seems really cool to me.
Yeah.
Especially
that's
now
kind
that
of
they're
been
both shorn.
Yeah, and that's kind of been like a thing, which has been in a way kind of fun. Like we've now have had several of these like sort of wayward journeys, like with Talani Moss, and that's kind of a way that we've learned a lot more about them.
Gosh, who are the two from Dead House that we really liked? They're the two guys traveling together. One's like one's a Jagged.
Yep.
What do you remember their names?
Wait,
from Dead House.
Well, there's a Carium and Mappa, but that's a Trowel and a Jagu, not a Talani Moss.
No, I know, but like still just like two different races
yeah,
are friends.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It kind of reminds me of that, which is
yes, yeah. I like these. I like this kind of element of the story where you have that like sort of duo or these sort of like wayward journeys that are kind of happening, but they're tied in with everything. It's very fun. Like,
yeah.
And I do like that we kind of do also just kind of get different groups of different sizes at times too. It feels very cool.
Yeah.
Well,
can you remind me, like, because like with the Whirlwind and with the Malazan army, it's like I know where we're going, right? They're gonna fight.
Boom.
Why is I know they say in the beginning of his chapter, I can't remember. They're hunting. Why is Onrak there? In the Nascent.
As far as I know, he's there because he's hunting renegade Talani Moss,
which we think are the 7.
Which I think are the
Possibly.
7, but my thought process is the reason why the 4 are there is because they believe that Onrak's contingent failed, and they're correct, but Onrak did survive.
So
they didn't all die.
Yeah, so because the floods of the Nascent basically took out all of them except for Onrak, right?
Yeah, he's a lone survivor of that event. Yep.
Okay, makes sense.
Yep. And so I think they're there because they believe that he failed, which he did. And so, yeah. But yeah, he's part of that group who's hunting down them. And so now it's going to be kind of like, I guess, interesting to see what happens with their particular group. But I think this also shows that not only are these 7 really significant for where the story is going, but I think the Nascent is really significant as well. Like, it feels like there's like a hidden gem or hidden story, like especially now that we found the Hounds of Dark there. Like, there's definitely something important there that like needs to be uncovered, and I think we're gonna figure that out through this ritual that they're about to do.
Yeah, I put down
at least I hope so.
a couple notes about the Teast Edor and their warren, which is just because it was like there's a lot of information. So like their warren is the Kurald Emerlon, which was fractured into parts. One of those parts is the nascent, in which the wall is cracking now and broken in places, and eventually it's just going to flood whatever's on the other side. It's going to happen, basically. Also, the catfish in it are growing limbs because don't know.
That's what catfish do, man.
Yeah. Don't know. Which was also a funny scene when the catfish like basically like half eats the Onrak basically, but doesn't really matter because he's a skeleton. He just disintegrates in the dust.
He's just night crawlers it.
Yeah.
Like, whoop, whoop.
Yeah, that part's funny. So down in the marsh, down the wall in the marshlands are where the 7 statues are, which are the Hounds of. I wrote Hounds of Shadow because at that point I thought they were, but turns out they're the Hounds of Darkness. And to truly control the hounds, I can't remember how I got this information, but somewhere in there I did. To truly control the hounds, you have to sit the Throne of Shadow, which is currently on Drift Avali. And when you do that, you will make Kurald Emerlon whole again. By sitting on that throne, you will take the fractured warren and make it whole again, therefore giving you control of the Hounds of Shadow, I guess.
And notably, that's what Troll Singar tells us. And as I was kind of saying, the other kind of storyline is with like Crocus and Absolar and Cotillion. But I think as far as their story goes, the important highlights there are Relic, which is Absolar's father, dies and is buried. Crocus is now Cutter. He is taking on Cotillion as his patron. He's now an assassin, and they have been commissioned to go to the Drift
of Ollie, yeah.
Drift of Ollie. Drifty Ollie. And so they do where and again it seems like a lot of pieces that Cotillion's moving, but that is where the throne is, and Crocus meets basically the sole surviving defender, or rather last line of defense for that particular throne, and who is a Tista Andi, and they are being assaulted by the Tista Eater, which is where Troll Singar comes from. And now Troll Singar separated from his people because he believed that their mission was not going to be ultimately for the good of their people.
Yeah, they're being manipulated by some force into thinking they're doing good, but
yep.
Yeah.
And so now it seems like Troll Singar knows this because those are his people. Like his brother, his father that he was outcast from, or his brothers, he's outcast from, who are leading that assault, is what it seems like.
Yeah. And so the last T-standee that was there, his name's Darist or Darist. That whole scene I thought was awesome too. It's a floating island that's moving that has the Throne of Shadow on it. They get there, they crash the boat. A Crocus or Cutter or whatever the hell gets sucked under into a current that spits him up into this little pool way many levels down. He gets saved by Darist, who's like, yeah, there's a million different currents. This is the only one that leads to your safety. So Absolar, your friend, she's probably dead. She's drowned. If she's not here, she's dead. Which no way she's dead, but she is dead.
Right. Well, because he does notably say that the only other way would be to jump onto land.
Yeah,
which is what Crocus failed to do.
Yeah.
But Absolar is also like a lot stronger than he is.
But the
and
boat
a lot
collapsed.
more graceful.
The boat did collapse when he fell in. So, I mean, it seemed like she went in the water.
But he got out of the boat.
Yeah,
right?
he jumped from the boat to the land. The land collapsed, and then when the land found the water, I think the boat like tipped basically. But I guess we never saw exactly what happened.
With her. And so she may very well have just like leaped off, just graceful as can be, and there you go.
Yeah, but he's notably Darist is the last remaining T-standee that were left there specifically by Anomander Rake to guard it. So awesome storyline as well. And then also I just real quick wanted to say that we don't really know how many pieces of the Kurald Emerlon there are, but we know there's one other part at least, which is surrounding Tremorlore. And that's kind of where we got the lore of like where Heberic thinks that a small spirit of a tribe stumbled upon the fragment, which led to the uprising in power that became the Drishna of the Apocalypse, and that's why, because of that fragment of the Corel Numberland, which is crazy, and also very cool. But yeah, that's really it with Crocus and Absolar, other than like they're very much growing apart. You know, we think that they're gonna maybe have a relationship and bond and get closer in Dead House Gates, I feel like, on their journey, but they're like they are as separate as you can get pretty much right now, and he does not like that. He wants to. That's the reason why he joins Cotillion, because he thinks that, you know, it will bring him closer to Absolar, and she's like pissed when she finds out. She's not stoked about that. So, and then the last one, Kalam. I'll just wrap it up with this. Kalam summons a double dick demon to take out
with horrible smelling piss.
With horrible smelling piss by playing a flute and to these diamonds that Cotillion gave him, that instantly like sucks the souls out of like hundreds of people, and then brings their captain up to this little like place in the stone, kind of like where the priest of darkness was in Dead House Gates. Like it's one of those like temples above the stone where they're trying to find Captain who was it? Who they're trying to find? What the hell's his name?
Kindly.
Captain Kindly. Because these rebels from the rebellion are about to. They've been sitting there waiting to siege in a siege basically, and they're like, "We're not waiting any longer. We're gonna go kill them." Then he releases the demon, takes their souls, go up, and they're like, "Oh yeah, we could have left. We could have left anytime. There's the back door right there, but where are we gonna go? You know, there's the people. The rebellion's here." And he's like, "All right, well, let me talk to Captain Kindly." They're like, "Oh, Captain Kindly's dead. He fell down the hole and drowned in this well. Dead."
Yep.
You know, as far as they know. And then basically they are just going to, I think they're planning to go into Raurakut as well or something, right? I can't remember where their story ends, but yeah. They're going into Raurakut in search of Corbola Dom. They want to kill the Corbola Dom.
Yep. And notably, Kalam is doing a task for Cotillion.
Kalam's doing a task for Cotillion.
Yeah.
Sin, even in these, so Sin was working for the rebels, but turns out she wasn't actually working for the rebels. She was working for the Malazans because her half-brother works for the Malazans, and she was betrayed by Fael, and she wants revenge there as well.
Yeah. But thankfully, Kalam, who works for the Malazans, who comes originally from the deserts, is now convinced Captain Iriz that he's working for them, when in reality he's working for the Malazans, when in reality he's working for Cotillion.
Dude.
Yep. Come on, man. Okay.
And all the while, he and Manala are on the rocks. Their relationship's on the rocks.
It's like the scene from the new Naked Gun. You've watched the new Naked Gun,
I haven't watched
right?
the new Naked. No.
Oh my gosh, yeah, they do one of those where it's just like, I got you. No, I got you. But did you see me just get you?
Yeah, there's like have you seen the meme of them sitting in the church? It's like of the sniper, and there's people, there's a guy in the back pew with a gun pointed at the guy in the front of him who's got the gun pointed at the guy in front of him. That's what it feels like. It's like,
yeah, it's exactly.
It is genuinely, for me at least, hard to keep, it's hard for me to keep track of people's histories. At the end of the day, it doesn't it matters, but that many levels, it doesn't really matter. It just matters what they do. But I'm trying to keep all of that. I'm trying to remember all of that. But when you do it for almost literally every character, and there's like thousands of characters, I am struggling to remember all of that. Even just like I was saying, like Fiddler in this book is the guy that went through all the stuff he went through in Dead House. And he's also the same guy who went through all that stuff in Gardens of the Moon. But they just it feels like ages ago that it's hard to be like, oh yeah, that's all one guy. That's one guy. So speaking of that, that's the plot, I guess. So let's go into our likes and dislikes, because I will say I'm going to lead with a dislike, and that it's so dense. And it's if I'm stretching for a dislike here. I still thought it was a great part. I loved it. but it did feel, I would say, more than maybe any part of any book prior, felt to me like work. I had to put in the work to keep up. And even still, even on this, after going over my notes, writing notes, I'm still like confused. And I know that's part of it. I know that part of it is you kind of just go along for the ride. But I think there are parts where I'm confused that I think I am expected to know, because it's not unknown things, right? Like I'm not something like, how are they going to create the gate using the Talon and the... We're not supposed to know that yet, right?
Yep.
I'm not worried about the magic system, but things like I'm supposed to remember the history of Dujek and what he meant to the Empire and what he meant to the Empress versus Kellanved and things like that, because motivation and things like that, I feel like you are kind of supposed to remember. You're supposed to remember everything that happened in Memories of Ice because you've read it. You're supposed to remember everything you've read in Dead House because you've read it. And trying to remember all of that, and then you give me like 5 different significant groups that all have different motivations, that all have double agents, and I'm just like, I just felt like it felt like a lot to me, and especially in contrast to part 1. And maybe that was it. Maybe it's just because part 1 flowed so well, and then I felt like pretty significant, like a break, slam the brakes, where the pacing is down to nothing, basically, so we can get all of this exposition and lore and world building, which again, I think is all great on paper, and I love having the discussion to deepen it, but it did feel challenging to me more than any other part. So yeah, that would be my, like, if I had to give a dislike, yeah, that would be it. And then likes, do you have any dislikes?
No, I don't think I really have any dislikes. I can definitely see where some of the difficulties come in. I think that one thing that's worth kind of mentioning is that with this book, I do think that we are being challenged more as a reader. Because in this particular case, it really does feel like now we're kind of being presented with this section where it's like, okay, I'm going to introduce a lot of different characters and set up these intermingling plot lines, and I'm going to trust that. Yep, and I'm going to trust that this is going to work because this is your 4th book.
Yeah.
Right. It's like you've been through it before now, so yeah, here we go. So, and I think that there could be, a criticism of that maybe that's really not the right way to approach, like, using the history that you've developed. But I think all in all, I still really enjoyed this piece, and for me, I don't have that criticism as much. It just didn't bother me. For me, it kind of just felt the chaos of it, and I just rolled with it. Whereas, like, I accept that there's certain things I'm probably not going to know just right now, or there's certain details that I just don't really need to know. I can just move past those, and I just kind of accepted that I cannot trust really anybody right now, because that is exactly where we are. We are in chaos. A lot of people are out for themselves. There's betrayal constantly brewing. And if all of a sudden, like, somebody betrays somebody where it's like their 4th betrayal, it's like, well, that's just apparently par for the course of this book. Yeah. And so I don't think I've been trying to pressure myself to track it as closely, just kind of accepting that I cannot trust people until the chips are on the table, so to speak.
Yeah. I would say that's
probably
my... I don't even mind that as much, as more of like, just as a, I think you have a lot better of a memory than I do, just in general. But just like having to, when I think about like other series I've read or other books, right? If I'm like, oh yeah, what happens in that book? I could read a 1-page summary and be like, oh yeah, that hits all the beats. You can't really do that with Malazan because everything is important. Everything holds such weight, and like I said, I'm only thinking of like previous things that I've read that, like you said, right? Steven Erikson said, this is your 4th book. I'm not going to, hold your hand anymore. Not that he was, but, yeah, it's a lot we've already gone through 3 books that I think he is just like, I expect you to remember everything you've read. Everything. I think that's the part that is making it hard for me, is that I'm having a hard time. Even things that like I haven't, it takes me a second when we're like, oh, T Stan D. I'm like, all right, T Stan D. Okay, yeah, that's Animander Rake's people that we haven't heard their name in like hundreds of pages, but like they get mentioned, and I just need to remember that that's who they are. And right, it's not anything like they're who's going to betray who or anything like that. It's things that you just need to know. They're important people for this series that you need to know who they are. I think that's the hardest part for me, is just like it's so full of lore. But again, like I got that in my likes as well. I think the lore has been awesome. It's been really good. I think getting back to the main story and familiar characters has been awesome. Like almost every character we've named, I'm like, I know you already. Great. I think the biggest criticism of this part isn't this part's fault. It's the fact that we had part 1 before it. I think if House of Chains opened with this section, obviously the Karsa stuff wouldn't make sense, but if you take out the Karsa stuff, it's like we're ending Memories of Ice, we're getting into this. And I'm like, oh yeah, we read Dead House, we got all this. We read Memories of Ice, we got all this. And boom, we're connecting them and we're going. But instead of that, he's like, I'm going to give you 200 pages of this awesome stuff that has nothing to do with any of that. And then you're thrown into it again. And in a really like... you hit everybody in this very, very small section. I think that's my biggest criticism. And like I said, it's not really the fault of this parts, rather than the fault of like the structure of it doesn't really make a whole lot of sense to me.
I was gonna say, if I had any criticism, it would be that this doesn't feel like a part 2. It feels like a part 1.
Yeah.
This feels like a firing off point. I am very excited for, especially the last part of this book, because I that's my favorite. Like, is like, I have enough at this point, grounding to like kind of keep track of all the characters. And so I can get the feeling of like these pieces being moved.
Yeah.
And I really like how things are being set up. I think it has made it really tough though. This being a part 2, firing off all the pieces, where the strongest plot isn't really being moved at all, and a lot of the pieces aren't really concentrated around that plot. Like it does, like, man, the part 1 was really cool, but it almost feels like we would be in a better position if part 1 was a lot more focused on like things with Cotillion, for example, like, because then you might have a better grounding for kind of how he's moving the pieces, whereas like what he's doing is like very opaque and vague, and so it is tough.
Part of me almost
I do
wonders,
think-
like, is there a world where part 1 and 2 are just infused together, and we get Karsa's story and origin just like any other part of Malazan?
Yeah, exactly.
And then we get the reveal, like, we already know who Toblakai is because we've read Dead House Gates.
Yep.
And so just have all of Karsa's parts in part 2 as Toblakai, and then at some point we get revealed, oh wow, that's Karsa. And like, I don't really think too much changes.
No, and really that's kind of what it would have been like in the first 3 books. I mean,
Exactly.
That's yeah.
That makes me
Usually kind of
wonder,
how they
like,
roll.
and it makes me wonder, especially like, obviously I think Steven Erikson, I guess I don't know for sure, but it seems like he was like, I want to give Toblakai an origin story that's important because I know where his character's going in this book, and I need it to make sense or whatever, have motivation, and I love all of that. But I just wonder, like, literally, will we see something like that again in all of Malazan? I wonder.
I don't know
if it's just like a one-off. Like, I got to put this in here before we get going.
I do kind of feel like that the timeline might have put a lot of pressure to make that decision of like, well, all of this stuff happens, in the past, right? So maybe I just get this all the way first because it's gonna happen like over a 3-year period. It's gonna be in the past, and then we'll get to a bunch of stuff that's all happening at the same time. Like maybe they just didn't want to jump the timelines.
Yeah. But I mean, like, if
don't-
you're reading Malazan, I think you could.
Yeah.
It wouldn't have.
I think we would have been fine. I think
Yeah.
we would have been fine. Yeah.
Yeah, because to me, it's like, really, when you think about the Karsa's origin story, it just doesn't really, it just the only thing it matters for is Karsa as a character, really, and I guess the setup of the seven. But you still could have done that with Troll and everyone. I think. I don't know. I trust it. It's just I did find it very odd, and like I said, I think both parts independently, great. I think part one being the way it was hurt my not enjoyment because I enjoyed it, just like hurt my experience of part two a little bit. I'm still loving it. I felt it more in this than I did even in like Gardens of the Moon, which is like the first time I really even experienced anything like that of like, wow, this is a lot. You know what I mean? Like, to me, this part was arguably the most dense of any of the parts I've read in any Malazan book. But I think part of that is just because we came off of part one, not because it actually is. But I don't know. Any predictions? I didn't write any down because like I just didn't have the brain power, really. So, how about you?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of mentioned a few of them as we're kind of going through, but I mean, the main thing I'm kind of looking at right now is I think that, you know, Cotillion is making a play, and I think that ultimately the play he's making is to block the throne more than it is to occupy the throne.
Just prevent other
And
people from taking it.
and I'm ultimately concerned that we are going to be seeing a splitting amongst descendants because like in the last book we were starting to see development under the chain of gods for mortals who were going to be serving the house, and we had an understanding that this would ripple ultimately through the Warrens as well, that kind of everybody would be involved in this. And so I do wonder with this contention of the throne that there's potentially people who are vying for this throne that would be more in service of the chained god, and this is Cotillion's way of blocking that from happening. So now we're going to start seeing pieces at play. Also, I don't know if this book will come back to it, but I really feel like the stuff that's going on with the nascent or maybe the two-state liaison. I do think this is going to somehow come back to Dragnipur, and I'm really curious to see how that will be the case.
Yeah, I'm interested too. I'm just
yeah.
gonna go opposite what you think, and I think
Yeah.
I think that the throne will be taken by the Eater, and that will be a pretty significant play for the House of Chains ultimately, because that's I think who they're working for, and I think maybe he'll get to control the Hounds of Darkness, and that's gonna be bad news bears. I think at some point it's got to take some power, right? This big bad's gonna have to get big and bad, so that would be especially who's there to stop them as of right now, other than Crocus, one T-Stand-D, and Absolar. I mean, if we're being honest, she's there. She's not dead.
Yep. And there seems to be an army of paraplegics, go across the world, just crawling their way to victory, man. Just
technically Heberick fits that bill too without his hands. I do think he joins. I think he ends up as part of the House of Chains. Maybe not Heberick himself, but I don't think I think he gets fully possessed by whatever is under there, and he does get roped into the House of Chains.
Dude, I wonder, how like with Heberick, like how his hands cut off because he was like a priest defender.
Yeah.
And then we learned about this in the last one, but I can't remember the law of Fenner. I can't remember what that was called.
Yeah, I can't remember.
But what if the Rev, it was called the Rev. And so what if like in the House of Chains, they have like the Rev, but instead of like cutting your hands off, they just put them back on.
That's all it is. He's like, I gift you your limbs. The Cripple God's, he's fucked up, man. He's got some sick sense of humor.
Yeah, so he hires a guy. He's like, you did a good job. Now I will cure you by burning your balls off.
Yeah, he gives them their limbs, but yeah, it's. I mean, that's what he did.
Yeah.
Gave the guy, he gave him his limbs back, but like, they didn't work anymore or something like that, or he cured his cancer, or broke his. I can't remember exactly what it was.
Yeah, he cured his cancer, but basically paralyzed him from the waist down.
Paralyzed him, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Good guy, crippled god. TCG.
Yeah.
The goat.
I mean, if anything, eventually, like Callan and Bruce gonna get fed up enough with this that he's just gonna bring the hammer down. He's like, you know what? I can't keep track of it anymore. We're
Yeah.
done. Just boom. We're
That's
starting
me.
over.
It's me basically. I mean, that's like let me see. I'm at page. I have my book is like 1,000 pages long, just right at 1,000, and we're right at the 50% mark. 500 pages in,
Yep.
and we have not heard from anyone in Memories of Ice other than in passing. But like that's the thing. It's like there's so many important things that it's hard to basically anytime something gets brought up, I'm like, oh yeah, that's important too. Caliban Brood, very important. Haven't thought about him once in this book because I don't have the like brain capacity to be like, don't forget this guy.
Yep.
It's important. It's just because there's so much going on, but yeah, I think it's a pro and a con. It's gonna make rereading it one day really cool, I think. And I want to believe that we are on the path of like convergence here. I really want to believe it. Like, I don't know if I could handle this for 6 more books. And I don't think we will because, right, I think the whole Deadhouse Memories of Ice thing was because of circumstance. Like, started writing Memories of Ice, lost the transcript, whatever. So I don't think something like that's going to happen again where it's like book 5 is just a totally different book. And then book 6 is a totally different book. And then 7 kind of brings them all together. 8, totally different book. 9, totally different book. 10 brings the whole series together. I would hate that, honestly. I hope we don't go there. And I don't think we are.
No. No. I think overall it's a very, I mean, it's a fantasy series that asks a lot. It rewards a lot. And I think that, I honestly, I don't know who else could pull off a series like this. I mean, frankly, I don't know anybody who could have before I started reading this and read Steven Erikson, but I think that he has quite a talent for pulling this off. So I don't think it's going to go that way.
Yeah.
And as far as like the last thing, I know we need to wrap up shop, but it's just, there was this one thing that stood out when I was reading that just like, for me was like one of those things was like, Steven Erikson is like subtly amazing because like all the things we typically gab about, like, I mean, just so good in terms of world building, but like the way that he writes too, which was, there was this paragraph where it said there were many strange occurrences in all of this, nibbling and squirming beneath String's skin like bot fly larva. And it's just like a subtle thing, but like that is not obviously a phrase we would use as like English speakers. It comes from their world.
Yep.
It's also something that we intimately understand. And this phrase has not been used before until now.
Yeah.
And so it's like for it to be used by Fiddler, who is currently traveling through Aaron's Way, which is like something we read about in Deadhouse Gates, where we were introduced to botfly larva when they attacked Felison, and where she had to like put the stuff on her skin from Heberick to like get them to basically push themselves out.
Yeah.
Like we're like intimately familiar with like how grotesque that is, and it's just like dropped in there. And it's just like, again, that way of using the stories to build the language with your reader as you're telling them the story. The way he builds characters, the way he builds history, the way he builds language through that is absolutely amazing. And I think that's what makes it all work. Like he has the crafting, like the craft to be able to pull this all together. Yeah. And so it's very fun.
Yeah.
To read through it because of stuff like that. You feel rewarded for the experience of it all.
Yeah.
So
I think I do think it sounds like I'm being really negative. But I'm not. I did really enjoy it. Like I said, I think it's more of a victim of circumstance with part 1 being what it was, but really enjoyed part 2 as a part 1. I think you nailed it. I think it really does feel like now we've gotten actually through part 1. And I think there's going to be, now the ball is rolling. They are marching out. Things are happening to where I think the rest of this book is going to be awesome. At least I hope so. So. All right, let's wrap it up. Any closing thoughts before we go?
No, just not in terms of closing thoughts. Just for all the people who've been watching the videos, again, thank you very much. It's really awesome. We get, like I said, we get newbies and veterans alike. It's just so cool. And we do this a lot for each other, and we also do this because we'll probably watch it again later whenever we need to
Say I
recap for
freaking need
ourselves.
it. Yeah. I know I need
But
it.
it's awesome to have people along the way. So thank you very much. And we will try to get the next one out with the next few weeks. We do have several other things kind of in the works. So be patient with us. We've got some cool other stuff, other reviews coming for some of the books we're doing, and we've got some movie nights coming again. If you like that stuff, please check us out. But just be patient with us. It'll probably be a couple of weeks before we do the next one, but we're gonna keep working our way through it. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Awesome.
Okay.
Well, sweet. Yeah, like you said, we'll be back in a couple days if you watch our other content, and in a couple of weeks if you probably like closer to like 3 weeks or 3 weeks to a month. I think is realistic here. But yeah. So, signing off.
Mhm.
I'm Matt,
I mean,
and we
or
are.
love it.
All right. Goodbye. Good night.